Scott settle.
I can type that.
Okay. I hereby call the 2309th meeting of the Milwaukie City Council to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Our first item up will be the principal, Carmen, presenting students. And do we have both students here?
We have one student.
We have one student.
Yep.
All right.
Alian.
Let's start with Alian.
Come on. Have a seat. Good evening. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Great. I sent you some information about Alian. So what I do want to say is that this is Alian's first year at Milwaukie, and he has been such a joy to get to know. So it's only been, I mean, I've always seen him and I'm watching him play basketball and things like that, but it was actually just a few weeks ago that I started talking to Alian a couple weeks ago and just getting to know him better. So it's just been such a treat to get to know him. He always has a great attitude. Since he's been here, he advocates for himself. He's really good at making sure that everything that needs to be on his transcript is there, and he does not like stop until everything's taken care of. So and he just has such a great smile. So just some things that people said about you. That you're such a sweet, polite young man. That's from Mrs. Lockwood. She's happy for you that you were chosen to be Student of the Month. It is well-deserved. Alian's a great person. He's very respectful. His smile lights up the room. Mrs. Jackson. And what I want to read to you is from your coach.
Okay.
Most importantly. So Alian Ford enrolled at Milwaukie High School this past summer, wanting to excel in academics as well as on the basketball floor. Upon meeting Alian, it has been nothing but a great pleasure getting to know him. He's a great young man. He works extremely hard in the classroom as well as on the basketball court. Ford was nominated as a captain on his basketball team and has worn that responsibility very well. So I just want to say, just being the captain of a basketball team when you first come to a school is such a huge responsibility, but it says a lot about who he is and his character. He's been nothing but positive towards his teammates and doing everything he can to help them be successful. Our Milwaukie boys basketball program has had some very good success so far this season, and he is a big part of it. Alian will have many successes in his future due to his ability to positively communicate, his drive, and his maturity. His goal is to play basketball at the next level, and without a doubt, I believe that he can, as well as be a successful college student athlete. That's from your coach. And I do want to say our boys basketball team is actually doing really, really well. And I do think it's his energy and his leadership and just the boys coming together as a team. We were down by 26 points with 6 minutes left, and they came back and won. So it says a lot about who they are. I've never seen that happen in a high school basketball game. So, and I've been doing this for about 20 years. So thank you for coming to Milwaukie and for giving me a chance to get to know you. And it's just an honor to meet someone like you, and I'm just really grateful.
Hello. Okay. Thank you guys for opening your arms to me and just allow me to be who I am and basically help others and help myself and just basically help the community.
Cool.
Alian Ford.
All right. So who wants to start?
I'm dying to ask a question.
Okay.
Well, a couple, actually. So I'm really, really interested in learning more about this tennis shoe design opportunity. And, you know, it sounds like a lot of fun, but I also, I want to know more about how you chose to help people in Flint. Because I haven't had an opportunity to cry yet, so that's amazing. So can you tell us more about that?
Yes, so I'm a part of a organization that helps kids with like schoolwork and, help them get to college and stuff like that. The organization is called SEI, and basically they had a Nike program to where people that work at Nike can talk and help the kids in the program basically pick a topic that has something to do in the world that last year, was going on, and basically help us pick a topic and build on the topic to help people that are in these crises and, stuff that was going on. And we picked Flint, Michigan because, their water, they don't have a really good clean water supply. So we picked Flint, Michigan, and we made our shoe based out of recycled water bottles and, just recycled products. So we did that. We based the top half of our shoe, which would be like when you look at a shoe, they have the outsole, the midsole, and then they have the top. We put the top kind of like water, so it looked like water. And then we had the midsole go from dirty water to clean water, showing basically how we wanted to change the way the water looked and how we wanted to help bring more water and help basically clean the water for them. Then on the shoelaces, so on the tip of your shoelaces, we put I can't think of the name, but it's basically like when you put it in water, if the water's dirty, it kind of tells you, like, it kind of tells you if it's dirty or
test for
clean.
lead.
Water tester.
Yeah, water tester, that's what it is. We put a water tester on the end of the shoelaces, so when you put it in, tell you if the water's clean or dirty for them to drink. And yeah, it was just a great experience.
That's amazing.
It was just great.
That's really cool.
Wow.
Yeah.
I also just wanted to mention that just over in Forest Grove, there's an excellent physical therapy program at Pacific University. Full disclosure, somebody's husband works there.
The coach there.
My husband coaches football, not basketball, but yeah, thank you. Wow, that's incredible. Thank you for doing that work. Thank you for joining, your classmates in what, that's so creative, and I just love how much it all everything. It's like you thought about it at every level of a shoe, and most of us don't think about shoes that deeply, but that's outstanding work. So congratulations, that's very cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for coming to Milwaukie. I see some people behind you who appear to be very proud of you and filming, and I would just say thank you to you as well for supporting this young person. And as always, Carmen, Principal Gelman, you nailed it.
I can't help it. Pretty easy.
Yeah, so I see on here pre-calc and some tough stuff. And yearbook, what are you doing on the yearbook?
I'm actually not doing yearbook this year.
Oh.
I wanted to, but I did it last year at my other school, and really it was just, we worked on putting a big collage page together, so like different pictures, but cutting out their body to where you can make space for everyone and not having like the background image in there. So it's just like a big collage on a piece of paper for the yearbook, and it came out really nice at the end.
Yeah. Oh, cool. Well, and in track and field, you're a runner, or what do you do in track and field?
This last year, I tried high jump, but I was so into basketball and everything, I couldn't really do the events. So it was like I just went to practice and stuff like that. The year before that, my sophomore year, I did the 100 and the 200. Yeah. And it was just nice. I really liked it. Yeah, I like running, just like therapy.
Yeah. There you go. And good training for basketball, right? So it's all at once. Well, I wish you all the best in whatever you decide to do next, community college or wherever you decide to go. And so I'm sure they'll be very lucky to have you. So
Thank you so much.
Apparently it's my turn because everyone's looking at me. I am
about this much acquainted with Self-Enhancement, Inc. because I did a little bit of volunteer work with the organization, and I absolutely love it. So it's really awesome to see someone sitting in the outstanding student seat who's been a part of that program. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts about how that experience has shaped you. I mean, I hear a lot of what you're saying, and like you're obviously a leader and you're really engaged with your community. You have very clear goals ahead of you, and those are all things I associate with SEI, but that's me filling in the blanks. So I'd rather hear you talk about it.
And when you say talk about how they helped me get to where
Just what it's been like for you to be a part of that program, because I think it's a really great program, and I don't know that a lot of people know about it.
Yeah, it was really big for me growing up because they gave me a place to go after school and to hang out with all my friends from different schools and help me with my work. Also, my grandmother was an after school teacher there, so I had to go, and she was always on me. She was always on me to get my work done, and basically they just helped me become a man at the end, and basically just gave me a path to work with on my own to get things done. They have a really great summer program that you can go to, and they just do fun things with you the whole summer. They do classes with you to get you prepared for the next year. They do a lot for kids, they help with going out of town for basketball, for basketball in the summer. They help with money, and they help with just staying in touch with you to see how you're doing. So they did really good with just staying in touch with me and keep pushing me to be better.
Yeah, I love it. Well, you are clearly a pretty great person, so I think it worked.
Thank you.
It's really an honor to meet you and to see the kinds of things you've done already in your young life and how much more that might contribute to our community at large and, to just the scope of things at large. And you could probably work at Nike and still be a physical therapist, a couple days a week. So you could put the two together somehow. I have a feeling that if that's what you decided to do, you'd make darn sure that it worked. It seems like you have a lot of tenacity and a lot of curiosity and the kinds of things that make you into the person that you are. I want to also say that with your principal, Ms. Gilman, one of the things I've always appreciated about the students she brings to us on a monthly basis are that they are so diversified. You're very good in athletics, you're very good in academics, you're very good at community service, you've got, looks like, you've got good family support, all these kinds of things. But so instead of just looking at somebody for their academics, I appreciate that the students we get to see have a wide background, and that Mrs. Gelman always makes some kind of comment about how excited and thrilled she is to be able to present these young people to our city council and to the city of Milwaukie. And so I think that says a lot for the tone at Milwaukie High School and for her and for you also at the same time. So thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think she really does do a great job of picking who comes and talks for Student of the Month, and she's just really engaged with her students, and it helps us a lot to know that we're being noticed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah.
So I wish I would have gotten to see that game. It
Oh,
was an amazing game.
Don't get me going, almost in trouble. I'm not supposed to get in trouble.
So, I think your advocacy is a powerful thing, and it's something that's often overlooked. It was one of the things, I got to know Kobe a little bit because I used to shoot for Adidas, and he was sponsored by them for a while when he was younger. And that was something that always impressed me about him, was his advocacy, not only for players, but also in the broader world. And I thought he did some extraordinary things there, and it's powerful, and it's really important. So keep that up, and keep that work. And I look forward to seeing the Clackamas team. It sounds like they're going to get a whole lot better pretty soon. All right, so I have this plaque for you. The City of Milwaukie is proud to recognize for outstanding student achievement in academics, civic engagement, and extracurricular activities at Milwaukie High School, Eliam Ford, who let it be known to all on this 18th day of February 2020, the City Council of the City of Milwaukie, a municipal corporation in the County of Clackamas in the state of Oregon, recognize this student as an excellent example of the bright future of this community and nation.
I want to know if he's wearing the shoes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's it.
Can I say one more thing?
Yep.
Sure.
Okay. I just want to thank everyone for taking time out of their day to be here and talk to me today. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a game tonight?
There is a game tonight.
Good luck.
Good game, yeah.
Thank you. We'll see you in a little bit. Okay. Thank y'all.
We're out in the south. Sorry you guys can't make it.
Oh.
I can hear him from my house.
Isn't he cool?
Yep.
He's such a neat kid.
So no Arthur, huh?
No, Arthur. I don't know what happened to my other kiddo. I don't know.
Next time.
3-day weekend, I don't know.
We're intimidating.
You're really intimidating.
Yeah, scary.
I can't get him here. I can't drag him here. So anyway, he's a great kid too. Y'all will love him when I get him here. So just a quick update on Milwaukie. Okay, so one thing that's super exciting, well, obviously, is our boys basketball team and how well they're doing. And I think it helps to create like excitement around the school. They're going to play tonight, and if they play tonight, then, because we're in second place right now, so then our first playoff game will be at home, which is what we really want. Also on Fox News, like I said earlier, one of our younger students on the girls team, she's scored over 1,000 points already since her freshman year, so she's one of the top scorers. She's an amazing young woman, and it's just really interesting. Like, she doesn't have a cell phone, she doesn't do social media, none of that stuff, because she wants to focus on her academics and playing basketball, and that's what she does, and she's just a really neat kid. So those teams are doing really well. I think for me, the most exciting thing so far this semester is my 9th graders. So my 9th graders were struggling. And I had like an emergency 9th grade meeting, or I think I told you guys about that. So then we did a boot camp. So we brought in a bunch of 9th graders, and they had to stay till 5 to get work done and things like that. So I was told, well, I think you're up 15% from last year, right? My goal was 20%. I wanted to be 20% up for kids being on track, meaning they don't have any Fs. So that we got the call that that we were at like 15%, and we had about a week to go. And so I said, okay, So we went on, and then at the day of when all the grades were in, I got a phone call at like 9 o'clock at night, and they said, okay, guess where you're at? And I said, because we were pretty low. It's been low for quite a few years at the 9th grade on track, and they get their grades up later, but I said, I'm up 16%, they're like higher. 17%, higher. 20%, higher. 25%, higher.
Oh, man.
31%, we jumped in a quarter for 9th graders on track, which is the highest. I went back 5 years. It's higher than we've been. And it probably is higher even if I were to go back 10 years. So we ended up having another celebration and bringing the 9th graders back into the gym, and this time we celebrated. And and got them all kinds of treats, and we talked and they talked, and it was just a really neat experience. And so they're really excited. And now they're like, what if we get to 95%? Will you get us some drinks? Not alcohol. And I said, well, of course I'll buy you pizza, I'll get you ice cream, I'll get you drinks. But anyway, they're just really excited that they've done so well. And for me, I'm super excited and proud of my ninth graders. And so being on track, there's a lot of research that shows that if you're on track and you don't have any Fs, like the likelihood of you graduating on time and being more successful is astronomical. If you get one F, the likelihood that you'll fall behind is like 50%. So it's a huge thing to have our kids at 83%. So that's my biggest news right now.
Cool.
Good, that's great. What wonderful
great news.
things to hear.
Thanks.
Sounds like the ninth graders are the outstanding students of the month, too.
Yes, they are now. Yes, they are now. I just went and met my eighth graders today, so
Boot camp.
I told them they have a big shoes to fill when they come up.
I saw something too, is it next Thursday, there's a big fundraiser for the band program. There's like a spaghetti dinner fundraiser.
The band.
And the orchestra, yeah. So lots of stuff going on campus.
Yep, and this weekend we have the sports comedy. They do the sports comedy thing where the kids lead that.
The
and it's
improv.
Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah.
Yep, they do some amazing work, and the art that is up there right now is really pretty talented. We have some amazing artists.
And the building's still on track?
The building's on track. We are moving in on June 12th.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're ready to go. They're trying to get some of my people, like counselors, to move in now, but I'm like, no. It's too much of a disruption. Like, we've got to like move in together and then just let this year play out, because we're giving up our gym March 21st because they're doing some seismic upgrades and we're getting a new floor and all kinds of stuff, so we won't have a gym. We just need to get through this year. We got this. We got this.
Great.
Any questions? Any other questions?
I think so.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
You too.
Too.
Okay, our next item is long-term care ombudsman training with Fred Steele.
Excellent. Great, thank you.
I appreciate you already talking, so I didn't make that. That's okay, sorry.
Good evening. My name is Fred Steele. I'm what's called the State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. Up here with me is one of my deputy long-term care ombudsman, Steph DeLage, who lives just down the road, really. Really appreciate this opportunity to come in and speak with you. I mentioned I'm State Long-Term Care Ombudsman. We're actually a separate small state agency. We're an independent state agency, independent of Department of Human Services or any other agency, but we actually function more like a nonprofit and really based in communities around the state because we're built on a foundation of volunteers. Right now we have about 160 volunteers around the state. Milwaukie is one of these areas where we're really looking to make some inroads to grow our volunteer core. Right now we have 2, and I have this in some of these slides. We have 2. We really need more, about 10 or 11 in this area. And I'll talk a little bit about what we do. This is new for me. This is new for our program, coming in and talking to a city council. We're trying to get creative in how we're trying to recruit volunteers. I've been in this role for about 4.5 years now, the head of this program, ahead of our agency. Been doing presentations around the state at times. We have a volunteer recruitment team that does a lot of this as well. But this is kind of new, looking for some creative ways to recruit more volunteers. Again, I mentioned we have about 160 statewide. We need about 300, though. Wow. What we do is we provide advocacy. And actually, let me flip through our slides here since we did put them together. And I know I'm going to be fairly quick here, respect your time. This is the larger agency that we have. We have a total of 3 programs. We have a statutory advisory board as well with governor appointees and legislative appointees. Not going to get too much into that. We have, this is our mission, really focused for the long-term care ombudsman program, really to simplify it, what we do and what our volunteers do after they go through a 6-day training and monthly continuing education. We advocate for residents and Oregonians that live in long-term care facilities, so nursing facilities, assisted living, residential care facilities, and nursing homes. Statewide, that's about 45,000 individuals that live in those settings, and we protect their rights, giving them a voice if they need it, try to protect them through our function, from abuse and neglect, but ensuring that they're also not being evicted from their homes, dealing with medication issues, and, individuals that are living, and these are their homes where they live, and they receive services there, but the foundation of when they move into these homes is there's kind of this imbalance of power from the building, the ownership. They provide a contract, the resident agrees to it, kind of like a lease, but it's not, there's no balance of power there in that contractual relationship. Sorry, I'm an attorney, so I look at it that way, but for the residents and for our program, we kind of help balance that out. We give them a voice and really kind of give them some protections. This is our statewide map of our staff and, really how we break it up. Actually, this is our old map, I just realized, yeah. So we actually have, one of the reasons we need to get from 160 to 300 is this 2019 legislative session. The legislature gave us 3 additional staff with the goal of recruiting another 100 or so volunteers, because that's kind of the return on investment that our small state agency can provide with our staff. So Steph here actually covers Clackamas, Hood River, Wasco, but no longer, and Columbia, but no longer east of Sherman, Wheeler, Gilliam, and anyway. But she provides supports to the volunteers and that kind of staff level support for the advocacy we provide. Oh, somehow the old map just got fit in there, but this is the newer map, so. Okay, now I see what my staff put this together for me. So this is specific to Milwaukie. So starting with Clackamas, the number of facilities, with the number of beds in those facilities. For Milwaukie specifically, so there's, something called the continuing care retirement community, but more so with assisted living, residential care, and nursing facilities. In total, there's 18 facilities. Number of beds, 796. But again, we have 2 volunteers. We need about 11 in this area. So really hoping to get any ideas that you have through any conversation now or even follow up. And then there's also adult foster homes, which are homes that have 5 or less residents in them. Generally, your larger facilities have anywhere from 40 to 60, maybe even up to 100. I'm not sure how big the ones are in Milwaukie, although Steph knows them very well. These are the type of issues that we deal with, that our volunteers deal with. And this is not, volunteering to shuffle paperwork. This is ideally a meaningful volunteer experience. My nose is kind of small. Actually, that's not too bad if your eyes are okay. Sometimes this menu pops up really small, but, discharge, eviction.
Or the glare from our own lights.
Oh, no, there is that. But, dealing with, individuals in facilities, they're receiving assistance with their activities of daily living. In a nursing home, it's a little bit more medical-based, rehab-type care. But, they receive assistance with bathing and dressing and toileting and medications, food. Obviously, they're receiving food in these homes. But there's so many points of issues that can arise for an individual that, as it shows on the bottom there, 4,694 were the total number of complaints, mostly addressed by our volunteers. The way our volunteers work, again, I mentioned they go through a training. These are individuals that, as it here kind of talks about their role, but they visit. We ask for about 4 hours a week visiting, 1 to 2 facilities. Usually they're assigned to about 2 facilities. They get to know the residents that live there. These are volunteers based in their community, and they're advocating for fellow community members who happen to live in these care homes that need that a little additional voice. They become a trusted source, a trusted person that they can go to, and that's, again, what we're looking for more of here in Milwaukie, as well as larger Clackamas County. For the support, this is just kind of just roughly sharing that I mentioned we have monthly team meetings. Steph, functions as a supervisor and a support at the same time for the volunteers that she has. I think right now you have about 17 in Clackamas County, 14. Okay, but in total, Clackamas County total, we need about 30. I mean, there's still a lot of growth that we're looking for. Really, Clackamas County tends to be, when I look at it from my perspective latitude, it's kind of one of our hot spots of where we need more volunteers, and we're really suffering, and for reasons I don't know why it seems to be unique in the larger Clackamas County area. So that was a very quick run through, as our phone number, our website, but I'd be happy to take any questions. And Steph, I don't know if you wanted to say anything. I brought you up here with me, maybe unexpectedly, but so.
Well, I think we saw that you were doing a training next month.
The most important. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, and sometimes I forget that most important piece because we have trainings. So we have one that started today down in Lane County, for example. We try to hold about 2 a month. But yeah, March 10th, we have a training that's starting. So the invite was for a few weeks ago. My work, I get involved a lot with legislative work. So it was, today was the earliest. Actually, I really appreciated hearing the basketball stories. I'm really bummed I missed the game too. My fourth graders are practicing. My co-coach is starting them here in 5 minutes. I coach fourth and sixth graders. I love a good basketball game. So anyway, yeah, March 10th, we have a training that's starting up. We have a great partnership with the statewide AARP program, the AARP Oregon. They have offices that are just off Stony Brook. Do I have that right? Sunnybrook, thank you. Sunnybrook, right off 205, that they let us use their offices. So we actually have a training that's coming up very close.
And is that you're still looking for volunteers for that training, or if people miss the deadline?
Not miss the deadline. Okay. So a battle with my own staff. Sometimes they like us to know, a couple weeks in advance who's going to be at the training. But usually we don't do a hard cutoff till about 4 or 5 days beforehand. We always have training materials ready. It's just a matter of more. We do run background checks on volunteers. I mean, these are people that we have to trust. They're going into, homes and basically apartments of other residents, people. And so we want to ensure that, they pass their background checks. But we do reference checks, and it's relatively rigorous for a volunteer program, but just ensuring the safety of the people we serve.
Mm-hmm.
There is an online application.
Yes.
So at that website?
That website.
Okay.
Yep.
Also, one of those very important things that our volunteer recruiters are very skilled in typically conveying. But
We should announce this at the end.
Yeah.
Writing it down.
Yeah, maybe to touch on, if you have, to help brainstorm now and again later, and the last thing I'll maybe mention, have had the opportunity to work with legislators. Sometimes we can get in their legislative newsletters, their constituent newsletters, that we have volunteers coming up. I don't know if the city of Milwaukie might be a little too late, probably, I would imagine, for an upcoming newsletter. But we do have about 3 or 4 trainings that we hold in the metro area. The AARP office is not that far from here, probably about twice a year. I think we've been holding trainings there. So maybe again in the future would be excellent if that opportunity is available.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention that this Friday morning for the North Clackamas County Chamber of Commerce, which is a chamber that includes this whole North Clackamas area, their AM Business Connection is going to be held at AARP's offices on Sunnybrook. And it would be probably a really good time for somebody, whether it's someone from AARP or one of yourselves, to mention this program and this need to the probably 50 to 60 people that will be gathered there.
Absolutely. That's this Saturday morning?
Friday morning.
Or Friday morning.
Friday morning at 7:30, from 7:30 to 9 at the AARP office. The AM Business Connection is held in a different member's business every week, and AARP generally sponsors at least once a year, and this is their time.
Thank you.
We are a volunteer-rich community. We love to volunteer and step up, and we're lucky in that when we have boards and commissions that have openings, we often have more people who want to be more deeply engaged in the community than we can take. So, this may be one of the opportunities we can present to people, saying, hey, this is another way to get involved and to really make an important difference with your neighbors.
So I was going to say, if you could sort of describe because people don't necessarily see themselves in that position, right, and doing that work. But if you could give like a description of what a good ombudsman, that I've struggled with that
no,
word.
it's a mouthful.
Yeah, is like, so that people can help people see themselves in that.
Yeah, I actually thought we sometimes have a slide. I must have excluded it this time. Just kind of gives that overview of what a volunteer for us looks like. Really, most of them, admittedly, are retired, but not all. They're individuals that have had a wide variety of careers, whether it be professional careers, your doctors, nurses, teachers, attorneys. We have people who have been stay-at-home moms or stay-at-home caregivers for their life. Definitely a lot of social workers. So that's kind of that background piece. But ultimately, it's just we're looking for individuals that have a passion for helping others. And one thing that's a little unique with our program, though, is we don't do best interest advocacy. We're not out there to do what's in the best interest of individuals. We're there, again, to help them have a voice, so to ensure that their wishes are being carried out, that they can live the life the way they would if they were in their own home. They just happen to be in a care setting that, it starts off with a little bit of imbalance of power. But somebody has that interest in helping others, and then we have the infrastructure to guide them how to do that. So.
Great.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds like a great program. Yeah.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Good.
Thank you.
Maybe I'll see you Friday morning.
All right, next up on the consent agenda, we have the meeting minutes of January 21st, 2020 work session and January 21st, 2020 regular session. We have a resolution acting as a local contract review board approving the award of a contract for the construction of the 2020 McBride Avenue Improvements Project, CIP-2015-W27 to Interlake, Inc. Does any member of council wish to remove an item from the consent agenda?
No, I do.
I would entertain a motion then.
I move to approve the consent agenda as written.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously. Audience participation. This is the part of the agenda during which council will hear community member statements regarding city business. Those wishing to speak must fill out a yellow speaker registration card available on the table in the hall and identify agenda item number 4, audience participation. As council has other business items on the agenda this evening, speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each. Because the information provided during the public comment may be new to some councilors, the city manager will respond at the next council meeting to those comments that require follow-up. Before we begin, are there any follow-up reports from the February 4th audience participation? Ms. Over.
There are none.
Okay. So, Ms. Kiran Dasbala, sorry.
I'm Kiran Dasbala, and my address is 9725 Southeast 29th Avenue, Milwaukie, Oregon. And the reason I'm calling that I bought a car when I had accident 2016, April the 23rd. And then I waited for 1 month because the car was drivable, kind of. The one it got hit by somebody, and somebody came and hit me from there, the back up on my car. So for 1 month I didn't buy the car, but I went and bought the car on May the 19th, 2016. I just came from India in January, and all these things happened. So I went and bought the car, and car is Mitsubishi 2015, and I bought 1-year-old car. So I paid less money, so that's why I bought it. And then the guy who financed it, he's from It says Westlake Financial Service, P.O. Box 54807, Los Angeles, California, 90054-0807. They made me sign for 3 years contract, so the car will be paid off in 3 years. 3 years passed by May the 19th, 2019. And they are still calling me, and then I paid extra 6 months even then. I just went and paid because I didn't want to have all this calling. They've been calling and calling, so I just need somebody to, and I wrote them a letter on the this February the 3rd, 2020, and then let them know that the other car that got hit was paid off on February the 24th, 2016. So this car, the one I'm driving, is already paid off, and I paid for 6 month extra. I have paid almost $805.90 extra. And still they are calling me for not paying monthly payment. So I want somebody to help me with that. And I wrote them and sent them the letter from the car I paid off before I bought this car. So they have evidence now since 2020, February the 3rd, I sent them a letter and I sent them that somebody has to sign, and they have already received it, and still I'm getting phone call.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure that we have any staffers per se that.
It seems like she needs consumer protection kind of people, which are at the state. I think.
Consumer fraud section of the State of Oregon Department of Justice probably be your best bet.
Can you?
Call them? Oh, okay. Does anybody have their phone number?
I'll try to find it for you.
Oh, okay.
Thanks, Justin.
Thanks, Justin.
Okay, A.J. Waters.
Hello, my name is AJ Waters, and I'm the owner of Stronger Skate Park right here in the city of Milwaukee. I came to speak to you after speaking to Allison from the city here about some of the changes that she and other people at the city, I assume, are working on mostly to address the parking downtown. And within those changes, she showed me some proposals to change the laws in Milwaukee that currently say that skateboarding, bicycles, and roller skates are illegal in commercial areas, which technically makes my business illegal because we are skateboarding in a commercial area, though indoors. So I wanted to come and say that I strongly support changing those laws. She was under the impression that people haven't been given tickets for that. I have heard otherwise from kids who come to the skate park that they have been ticketed, and these are young teens from low-income families who are being ticketed for riding a skateboard outdoors. A few other things I just wanted to add. Skateboarding itself is not necessarily a monolith. Not everyone is skateboarding for the same reasons or in the same ways. Many people are using it as a way to get to or from the bus or to get to or from work. Other kids are just doing it for fun in their driveways, learning tricks and things like that. I started skateboarding when I was 12 years old, and it was all I wanted to do. I had a lot of struggles in school, and it was something to do when I got home that I just loved and looked forward to every day. So I love that my job now is providing a space for young people to be able to do The other important thing is that when we end up ticketing skateboarders or bicyclists or other people, we're both discouraging them from using alternative forms of transportation instead of cars, and we're turning non-criminals into criminals over something that's really not a criminal activity. And if it does become a criminal activity, there are other ways to enforce those things. If someone is trespassing or causing some kind of property damage via their skateboarding, there are other laws that exist that you can use to discourage that, besides just saying all skateboarding in commercial areas should not be illegal or should not be allowed for any reason. So, yeah, that's about it.
Do you happen to know, and I won't be surprised if you don't, but do you happen to know if those folks that were ticketed, were they ticketed just literally riding from point A to point B as
I don't know.
Or were they doing tricks on park benches?
I don't know, honestly. I just had one kid message me. I posted a little video to our skate park social media saying that I was coming here tonight and to let people know that this was something that was being considered because it affects a lot of the people who come to our business. And one teenager messaged me and was like, no, I've gotten a ticket for skateboarding in Milwaukee. And so I don't know what the situation was. I just know that he let me know that that happened to him.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
And if he's open, I'd appreciate knowing from him what happened, just so that we can also track that. That is not what we have in our records, so we would love to.
Yeah, and maybe it's very possible that he had something else happen and misunderstood. It's very possible.
And he's, I don't want to scare him off. That's not my intention. But I do need to make sure our record is correct to the council. So if he did receive something,
yes,
I would deeply appreciate knowing.
Yeah, I will try to track that down and get more information on it so I can find out when that happened and what he actually received.
That would be lovely. And Allison, just send it her way and she can get it to me.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for having your business in Milwaukee.
Yeah.
My neighborhood.
Sarah Reynolds.
Hi.
Hi.
So, I'm a Milwaukee resident who also belongs to the Stronger Skate Park message board. I'm a roller skater, not a skateboarder. And it was one thing that was made clear when I moved here, like, oh, if you want to roller skate, don't go downtown because you can't skate downtown. And I just definitely noticed it. So when they put a call out for people who lived in Milwaukee who supported the change, I figured I would come down here. I wasn't really prepared to talk in front of everybody. It's not my thing at all. And I had to bring a bunch of kids. So I apologize.
We welcome kids.
We're really glad you did.
Yeah,
Civic education, we like it.
I just wanted to like come and support that because like, hi, I'm a cis, white, middle-aged kind of fat lady who roller skates. Nobody's gonna mess with me, really. I'm pretty much invisible to law enforcement or whatever authority that it would be messing with people. But for me, that's just like, as a misfit teenager, I'm like, I know this is on the internet, but I hung out at the graveyard, like when I was like a teenager, and like to get to somewhere it was really hard for me. I lived out in a rural area. A lot of times I had to rely on my own transportation. And I know this isn't really specific to bikes and things like that, but I like to hang out downtown. And skating was a way I could have done that. So being discouraged, it's hard. It's just hard to be a kid anyway. So I felt that this kind of really targeted them. And as a parent, like the idea of like, oh, well, you could be stopped with your kids as a rule follower because you have them on the sidewalk on a scooter or whatever, just is kind of worrisome.
I agree.
But that's all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
I want
much.
to thank you for bringing your kids. And hey, kids, isn't your mom so cool? It's okay. We can talk later.
Look at that face.
All right, Laura Chapman.
It's helpful. Speak no less than 6 inches from microphone. Hi, my name's Laura Chapman. I live in Milwaukee. I live actually just over at Crystal Lake Apartments, so walked over. I want to talk some about the current police union contract. I know that it's up for renewal in June. And before I say what I want to say that I don't personally know any police officers from Milwaukie, and I'm not trying to say anything good or bad about them. I know that many people become police officers because they want to help their community, and I really think that's wonderful. But I am concerned by a couple of things in the contract, specifically that if a police officer is accused of something serious while on the job, they have the right to 48 hours to not answer any questions from any investigators, anyone. That's in the contract. And second, after 3 years, they can request that any disciplinary records be purged from their records. And this is just something that I would want to recommend changing both of those things and removing those from the contract, because Campaign Zero, a national organization trying to end police violence, recommends that those have been used in the past in other cities to cover up bad behavior by police officers. So I guess if I would want anything from the council, it would be, how can the public be involved in the negotiation of the new contract, and just what is that process?
It's a great question. Well, this input like this is perfect, one perfect way to do that. Yeah, we don't have, I'm trying to think, I mean, it's a longer process. Maybe Ann could get back to you about how
I'd be
public
happy
can get
to.
involved.
And actually, if I can get the card, I'd be happy to reach out to you afterwards. And I think that's probably the most any of us should say tonight. So let me do a little research and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for coming in.
Thank you.
All right. Anybody else going once? All right. Other business. Initiation of a right-of-way vacation on 51st Avenue. It's a resolution. This will be presented by our Associate Planner, Brett Kelver.
All right, good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors. Brett Kelver, Associate Planner with the City of Milwaukie, and here tonight just to walk you through a vacation exercise, and not vacation time off, but vacation turning over some public right-of-way.
Vacation and dedication.
Vacation and dedication, both things, that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So the area that we're talking about is on actually kind of a newish road. It's 51st Avenue. The general area here is kind of in the heart of our residential area. This is King Road, where the cursor is here. This is the King Road Shopping Center and 42nd Avenue. This is the formerly Milwaukie Christian, now Hope City Church, and this is the site of the Mission Park subdivision, which I think you'll remember from just a couple years ago. So the lots highlighted in red are the 14 lots that were created by the Mission Park subdivision. The lot that is in yellow was not part of that subdivision, and that's kind of how we have recognized an opportunity here tonight. So the property that, as you may remember, that was the basis of the subdivision. It was composed of several different lots, and the overall boundary is represented by kind of the outer edge of the red and then the yellow line. So what that resulted in was a little bit of an offset of the right-of-way along 51st Avenue because this lot here, 5084 Southeast King Road, was not part of the subdivision. So the developer was working with the property that they had, and they built 51st Avenue according to our standards. And it just happens that in this one particular area right next to this lot at 5084, there's a little little bit of an offset. There's a little bit more right-of-way to the west of the sidewalk than in the rest of the subdivision, those lots on that side. But the street was built according to our standards, and we got everything that we wanted in terms of, you know, vehicle travel lanes, curb, landscape strip, sidewalk. So here are just a couple shots of that area. This is looking at the one property that was not part of the subdivision. So you can see King Road kind of going to the right, 51st Avenue headed south. So we got you know, ADA ramps and sidewalk and curb here. And then kind of two other views. So looking at 51st Avenue, again, you're kind of looking at the property that was not part of that subdivision. And then looking at the frontage of that property that was not in the subdivision, you can see we have some facilities there. We have a sidewalk, but it's not our standard sidewalk. It's not what we'd like to have there. It's curb tight on an arterial street. It's also in this area constructed of asphalt. So that's not how we'd like the sidewalk to be. So last year, the folks who own that property at the corner at 5084 Southeast King Road, they decided to come in and go through a partition process to split off a lot just on the southern edge of their property. Their lot is in the R5 zone. It had plenty of area for that. Because of the dimensions of the property, they did require a couple of variances because the new lot that they created is this one here that would face on 51st Avenue, and it was about 5 feet too shallow to meet our standard. And then the area was a little bit under the 5,000 square feet. This went to the Planning Commission, and they considered that they recognized an opportunity to have an additional lot for additional housing, and so they approved the variances. Because with our kind of current understanding of how we handle requirements when a property is partitioning, the existing house, which is actually a residential home, like a care facility, one of the ones like you were hearing about earlier, it was already there. So parceling it off on its own lot didn't create any new impacts, and so our current practice is we cannot require frontage improvements for that lot. So in this case, we weren't able to ask for right-of-way dedication along King Road. And we actually didn't really get anything with this parcel as well because the street improvements were already in place. So it's kind of a rare, maybe it'll become more common over time as we get more sidewalks and things built, but often we're getting something constructed in front of a new lot that is going to have a new impact. In this case, that wasn't an opportunity. But as staff was looking at this, we did see an opportunity to maybe work out the kind of trade that we're talking about here. So recognizing that we have about 6 or 7 feet of extra right-of-way adjacent to this lot at 5084 Southeast King that we don't need. Nothing's going to happen there. The street trees that are going to be planted will be planted in the landscape strip there. So we saw an opportunity not only to kind of clean up the line of kind of the right-of-way line there. Usually about 6 inches behind the back of the sidewalk is adequate for us. And we saw an opportunity to possibly trade this right-of-way, if we vacated it, in exchange for the folks who did the partition here to dedicate right-of-way that we would actually use for future street improvements on King Road. And so the process that we would use is the vacation process to turn over this right-of-way that there's really not a need for. It would actually revert to the developer of the subdivision. So there's a little bit of triangulation that needs to happen here. It has to go back to kind of who gave it in the first place. So the simple thing to do, if we could, would be to just give the right-of-way up and give it to the folks who are then going to, that we would ask to dedicate right-of-way on King Road. But instead, what we have to do is we're getting an agreement with the subdivision developer to have them simply deed that land, which they would then be responsible for. It actually becomes a little tract. They'd be taxed on it. They'd technically be responsible for maintaining the sidewalk on this little strip that no one can build anything on. So in exchange for them deeding it over to the folks on the corner at 5084, we'd also get an agreement with them to basically swap the property, to dedicate right-of-way on King Road so that we would have the space that we need in the future to get a setback sidewalk, a landscape strip along King Road. So all that to say, that's kind of the idea that we came up with to see if we could make this trade happen. So far, all the parties have been agreeable, and the steps in this process are the council would initiate this vacation process. We then send public notice to properties within a certain distance of the area that would be vacated. Those folks have an opportunity to object to the right-of-way vacation, either in writing or they could come to the hearing that you would have, which would be the next step, have a hearing for you to finalize the right-of-way vacation. And then the steps that we would follow up on with staff would be, we would kind of follow through with these agreements, and we would get the right-of-way dedication from the other folks, have the deed, kind of swap the properties, whatnot. So the step that we're working on tonight is you initiating the vacation if you're willing to do that. So I'll ask if you have any questions about any of that. It's not a process that we go through very often. Usually the city wants to hold on to the right-of-way that it has because we want to have it be available for those kinds of improvements, but there's a little bit of an exception in a different case here.
I have a really quick question. You had a more recent photograph in one of your previous slides. I'm just...
Of the street view?
Keep going. Yeah, that one. So that's a new fence, it looks like, on 51st. I'm just curious about, I mean, it looks like they're already using the right-of-way.
Well, yeah, so that new fence was constructed by the developer of the subdivision, and it is technically in the right-of-way. So I don't know how much the folks who are on the corner are actually using that space, but it's not their property. So this would also kind of resolve a little bit of a practical situation, which is it's kind of a no man's land, and this would make it, not only would it give a little more area to, especially the second parcel that needed a variance for its lot area, with that additional right-of-way, it would actually meet the lot depth standard, and it would get significantly closer to meeting the 5,000 square foot minimum lot size standard.
So can you go back to the aerial? I actually think what you're doing is very elegant. I love it. But I have a curiosity that has nothing to do with what you're trying to do tonight, but I just can't stand myself. So
it's always dangerous.
In the parcel division, lot coverage of the remaining first parcel seems above what would be allowed because they split off.
Yeah, I had the same thought.
Yep.
So is that not something planning considers when they're splitting lots like that?
Sure, yeah, fair question. They actually, believe it or not, will meet the minimum vegetation requirement and the lot coverage standard.
The new lot will, or not the existing?
The existing one. Part of what's happening is right now this property has two driveways. So there's a driveway exit right here, really close to the corner. And so part of what we are doing as a result of the partition is we're requiring that driveway to be closed and the curb to be rebuilt so that improves safety at the corner. And you can see here, there's a note, if you can kind of read it through here, they're landscaping. So they're actually going to kind of de-pave some of this. So part of this existing pavement is going to turn into landscaping. And so between that area, some of the area, even without the right-of-way vacation, but a little bit of landscaping kind of along the back of the house, and then the area back here, it actually does add up to meet the minimum standards for minimum vegetation and lot coverage. So, yeah.
And the lot that's being split off, I mean, it wasn't part of, I mean, go back to your diagram of the there. So it's in red. It's not.
No. So
it's in yellow.
Part of the yellow.
This one is actually one of the lots from the subdivision. This is the property that split right here. So these structures are going away, and there will be enough space for a new house to be constructed right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And the fence, is it up against the sidewalk, or it's just somewhere in the middle?
The fence is pretty close to the back of the sidewalk.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Is that, well, doesn't matter. I mean, it'd be lovely to get them to plant some trees along that sidewalk.
Well, and I think
They have to,
That's
right?
part of the...
On the new lot, they will. Yeah.
Well, the whole subdivision,
right, I think there are probably 3 street trees that are slated to go in here, and so that'll happen. Yeah, there's enough room in the landscape strip, the width of it, to get some street trees in there. So.
I think think it sounds reasonable and sensible.
Kudos for creativity.
It was one of those inspired staff moments.
Yes,
So,
very inspiring,
it's all an
very
opportunity.
elegant. I like it.
It is a process that I personally am not real familiar with, so there's a little bit of, we're still kind of figuring out. It's not one that has happened very often. I think the last right-of-way vacation was 2013. It was Monroe and 44th.
Once since I've been on council, so what's that, 8 years or whatever?
So,
Yeah.
So I think what we'll do is come back to you in March on the 17th with a resolution that you would use to officialize it. But I'm still double checking some of those things, whether it should be an ordinance or a resolution and that kind of thing. But we're getting the agreements in place and that kind of thing in the meantime.
Well, there's a resolution here.
There's a resolution here to initiate it, and then there would be a resolution to say, yes, we
to do it.
Vacate.
Yeah,
Okay.
we've gone through the steps, we've issued notice, no one's objected in sufficient numbers, and
And everything else will be simultaneous, so everything will be, nothing, we won't be vacating without the guarantee on the dedication and.
right, we won't be vacating without, the agreements that we need. Yeah.
So are you ready for a motion now?
I am.
Fine.
Okay.
So I move to approve the resolution authorizing the city's initiation of the vacation of a portion of the public street right-of-way on the west side of 51st Avenue south of King Road.
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the resolution authorizing the city's initiation of the vacation of the portion of the public street right-of-way on the west side of 51st Avenue, south of King Road. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? None heard. It passes unanimously.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for the work on this.
Yeah, very cool.
We'll see you in a month on this, and hopefully.
Okay. All right, our next item is the TriMet Remnant lot, otherwise known as the Sparrow site, an update by Leila Aman. Oh, and Allison Wicks.
Oh, wrong one. Saw my name on it.
But no Christina, huh?
No.
There's only 2 chairs. There's only 2 chairs.
Oh.
We just have the B team tonight. Me, this is the A team over here. Good evening, Leila Aman, your Community Development Director.
Allison Wicks, Development Project Manager.
So tonight we're here to talk to you about the Sparrow Street site. I'll just give a brief background. What I'm hoping to spend most of our time is discussing goals for the site. So as you recall, the city acquired the Sparrow Street property largely because it serves as, I think, a unique and interesting site for development. The site is in close proximity to the trolley trail and to the Park Street station, as well as being directly right across the street from downtown. Actually, you can now access it a lot easier with the opening of Kronberg Park. So it's wonderful. We purchased this site with the intent to land bank it for affordable housing. We also, as you recall, negotiated a prospective purchaser agreement that requires us to do many things, one of which is to develop a remedial action plan. So the Department of Environmental Quality gave us 2 years in order to create that remedial action plan. In terms of how that works out from our timeline, I'll get to that in a moment. Actually, I'll flip back to that. I think this is helpful, is we have 2 years to develop that plan. What we have to do first is develop a site plan. And so that site plan will then guide where we intend to do cleanup in order to develop the site in a safe manner. So we are now 6 months into that 2 years. So we're really ready to get rolling on this in order to get us through that remedial action plan process in time. Just to give some folks an understanding of where the site is, the site constraints. So it's about 1.4 acres of land area. There's just about 0.4 of those acres is highly constrained by steep slopes and then surrounded by trees. So the buildable area of this is approximately just shy of an acre. It's currently zoned R5, which is in our low density, so the highest version of our low density residential district. Just based on a cursory analysis of that, we estimate we could build between 8 and 9 housing units if you did traditional detached single family. The other thing that is currently also allowed by right is a community service use. So if there was discussion that led to something different, or transitional housing use, for example, that could go through a discretionary process. To give you a sense of the timeline and what our approach or we're proposing to do is similar to how we've done other development projects. So similar to what we did with, say, Coho, what we intend to do with Harrison and Maine, which is we intend to release a request for qualifications to develop the site. And through that process, we hope to help support the site planning work. We've applied for a grant through Business Oregon, through the state, to help with the site planning. And we would select a qualified developer for the project. Ideally, that team will include some folks that can help us do both the public outreach component, which I'll talk about a little bit, and then develop the site plan that we would then submit. We would develop our remedial action plan around. We would submit that to the Department of Environmental Quality for approval, and then ideally advance that project through land use and permitting and so forth. We went through, as you know, the city has adopted community engagement as a goal, and we're using the IAP2 for guidance in decision-making. So to help determine the appropriate levels of influence and engagement that's needed, staff completed an impact assessment and matched it to the levels of the IAP2 spectrum. And we found that sort of the informing and the consulting and the involving elements are the key for success in this decision-making. So we will be working with the community in a number of different ways, and we'll work with our selected development partner to develop an outreach plan that aligns with this strategy. Some examples of what that may look like include stakeholder interviews and outreach with key folks. We intend to get feedback from the public on the site design elements. One of the key things about IAP2, I just want to point out, and when you look at the involved section, is that we will work with citizens who are involved to ensure that their feedback is at least considered and to the greatest extent practicable incorporated into the site design process. So they're informing us. We did a similar process with Coho where we got feedback from the community, it changed our design, and we were able to reflect back what changed. We didn't take every ounce of feedback. That's, I think, something we should just be really clear about, is that we intend to make our best effort to hear what's reasonable, what makes sense, and how we can collaborate best with our community partners in order to develop a project that everyone can get behind. So a couple of other key places that we expect engagement to occur. We'll be doing a lot of information sharing about this. We hope to do some sort of open house or site tour. So maybe instead of doing a town hall in the Masonic Lodge, we maybe do it on site. And so we'd like to work with whoever the selected consultant and developer is to develop that plan. And then what other opportunities we can fit into that process. So we have proposed some criteria as a starting point for discussion tonight. Staff has gone through some of the history of the acquisition, the resolution that allowed us to purchase this property. So we know that affordable housing is essential and is what will be built on this site. What we've put out there as a starting point, again, for discussion, is a minimum requirement to serve folks that are 80% of the median family income for at least 30 years. Based on my read of past discussions about this, that there was a real strong appetite for projects that could provide an income restriction in perpetuity. So that would either be a long-term leasehold from the city or a land trust type model. But that's intending to reflect what we know in the written record as far as what should be happening on the site. And then including energy efficient design. So again, trying to embody the goals of the city in terms of climate action. And then a couple of others that we would propose as well, which is it requires a minimum amount of public financing in order to leverage the project. And then we would also be looking at project delivery and timeline. So with that, I promised you a short presentation, and I delivered. Our key questions for you tonight are, do you have additional feedback and direction on the project goals, or do you feel that the project goals reflect your intentions for the site? And then secondly, we would like to get any guidance or input you have on the proposed community engagement plan.
Can we reverse the order? Just to get the easy one out of the way?
Do it however you want.
Sure.
I'm anticipating that that's the easy one. I'm good with the involve, up to involve. on the chart. Also, thank you for providing that in your slides. I think it's really important for us to always be reflecting back on that. I think that spectrum is really easy to understand. It clearly communicates, sort of what the expectation is for the community and what that feedback will look like.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree that that's the right level under the IAP too. I don't feel like, we'll see what comes in the actual engagement plan as it comes. But I mean, I agree with that point.
Great. Thank you.
You too.
All right, we're done.
So can you clarify before we go to question 1? So this RFP is not just for somebody to design, but this is actually trying to select right out the gate the partner who will build.
Yeah.
Who will be the owner, builder, whatever, of what happens there.
Yeah, and that is something I recommend that we do, because what will happen is if we work with an architect or a designer to site plan this, then we develop our remedial action plan based around that site plan, and then we go out to an RFQ. I can guarantee that the developer we select is not going to want to do that site plan. And so I felt that this was the most efficient way to do it, because you would be bringing a development partner on early. They would be vested in the project straight up front. They would actually be the partners who are helping us do the community outreach and engagement. And so they would start to develop a relationship and understanding of that community. And it felt like it was the most, again, efficient way for us to get somebody to participate who would actually then construct the project. So I feel like it will set us up for greater success than if we had done a separate site planning, go get the remedial action plan, have DEQ stamp it, and then try to take that out to the community. I didn't feel that would be, just based on my professional experience, the best way to get a developer involved, because you're handing them something that's already made and they may have very different ideas about how to do it. So this felt like the best way to get someone engaged early, and then I think also the engagement with the community and building that relationship is essential.
And do you think that who will participate in the RFP is sort of traditional affordable housing providers from, the names we all know, or will it be actual commercial developers?
I think that depends on the goals that you set, frankly. I think you will get some non-traditional partners as well. Since I've taken on this role, I've started to meet with a lot more folks that are doing land trust model type work. And so I'm starting to see that, and I think, I don't want to say there's any good things about a housing emergency, but what I have seen is that you're starting to see the field in which the development world it's widening, and you're starting to get a lot more folks that are actually really interested in developing affordable housing and using a land trust model is actually a time-tested model that we just haven't done a lot of on the West Coast, but we're starting to see more of this kind of activity. So I'm hoping to see some innovative and interesting partners, whether they be nonprofit or private oriented, that are still trying to get to the same goals.
Sounds good.
So, design, build, own, operate? Or are you, and the reason I ask that is, when I first reached out to TriMet about getting this piece of property for affordable housing, we had recently met with the folks out at
Blanchet?
No, that came later. The old school on King. God, I'm totally blanking. Wichita Center, and we had learned that there were something like 475 homeless school kids in North Clackamas School District. And in my mind, that is the #1 group of homeless folks that we should be attempting to house, because not only do we have homeless people at this point in time who are struggling at a really vulnerable time in their lives, we are probably setting them up to be homeless in the future. Because if they're in a situation where they're struggling that hard, where their family is struggling that hard, in all likelihood, they are being set up for failure. So it was really important to me that to the maximum amount we could, that's who we housed. So that's our 0 to 30, typically, income range. We also know that folks in that situation often need a little more care, wraparound services, which is why I asked the question about design, build, own, operate, because that does then bring us back to a more limited pool of people if we go that direction, if we stick with. And that was, when I talked to Neil about getting the piece of property, that was my pitch, was getting homeless school kids off the street. Then we talked to Blanchet, and the concept there was to have those cottages built basically for free by men, mostly men, who are homeless, who are learning to be carpenters through the Blanchet process. Yeah, that's true. Blanchet is 100% men, isn't it? And I thought it was kind of a perfect, right? That particular concept is not working out, so we are now moving on to a different direction. The advantage of a potentially different direction is we might be able to house more than the, say, 15 that we were thinking we might be able to fit in the little cottages. So I'm okay with some new concept. I still am very, very interested in seeing that that's who we house, that we create housing to get as many of the homeless school kids from North Clackamas School District off the streets and in housing.
So could we set goals like, that get to those, that they be family-sized units, that it be 0 to 30% AMI, and then in addition to that, I think that there's some requirements that, a potential developer do affirmative outreach, require that the project sponsors use, particular screening criteria, low barrier screening criteria. I sent you all, actually, I might not have shared this yet with the group up here, but Washington County in their
local implementation strategy.
Their implementation strategy exactly for the Metro Bond spells out specific affirmative marking, tenant selection, and lease-up requirements, and totally separate, but not to get us totally off track, but also contracting with minority-owned, women-owned, emerging and disabled veteran-owned small businesses. I think that.
Yeah, and Clackamas County also has a local implementation strategy that stems from that same.
Theirs is not nearly as good as
Robust.
this.
Yeah, I read the Washington County language, and I think that.
And I compared it with Clackamas, and it's super weak.
Yeah.
But a lot of the the core is still there around focusing on priority populations, MWESB contracting, that sort of threshold criteria is still in there.
Yeah.
So I think by requiring family unit size, you can avoid the fair housing pitfalls, because you're not going to place a single person in a 3-bedroom unit.
Well, yeah, I mean, you might have homeless kids who have a single mom or.
Sure.
I get, when I hear family-size units, I automatically revert to thinking 3-bedroom, so that's, I think, just my prejudice.
A lot of times 2-bedroom units are considered family size.
2 and 3.
Yeah.
1-bedroom wouldn't be a family unit.
Or a studio.
To me.
Right.
Studio,
So
sure wouldn't.
if we get some consensus around that general area of goal, figuring out how to get us there is another question.
Yeah. Well, a couple of thoughts I just want to put out there as you continue to discuss. So I'm hearing 0 to 30% is the target income range. I think I read through Washington County, so thank you for sharing that, Council Falconer. It was very helpful. I think there's a lot of guidance in there that would be really helpful, that is legitimate, that we could include as well.
Do we really think it's necessarily as low as 30 that these families are homeless? It's not people that are making 50 or 60% of AMI?
I'll tell you, the last time I called Clackamas County Health and Human Services to ask the question, hey, what's your wait list look like? What was the response? And they told me that the last time it opened up, it was 2017, for one thing. So the wait list has not been open since 2017. The response was, I think, over 10,000 requests, and they were only able to put an additional, I think, something like 1,000 people. So their wait list essentially is a tenth of the actual need out there. So, I don't think that we have information from Wichita Center. That, Katie Ray is the person who works with these families in our school district. The need is there.
Well, the need is there. The question is, do we have to go as low as 30% of AMI to hit? Shouldn't we just say we want to hit families and let it?
That's the trick, though, apparently, and because of the Fair Housing Act, we get into it gets tricky to specify. We literally can't say the only people that can live here are homeless school kids from Clackamas County.
But you can say 0 to 30, but you can say 0 to 30
income
AMI.
limits.
And say family size units. We can. There's ways we start to get there, but that is one of our ways, and that's an interesting question given how high rents have gotten. Maybe there are homeless, because we do know that there are a lot of homeless people that are working full-time.
Right.
Exactly.
So there may be homeless school kid families that at 60%, and maybe we can check that. Katie might have that information.
I think that, this is one of those few, we have a lot of other tools that we're considering in our whole toolbox for housing affordability on the spectrum, and this is an opportunity that we have in this segment that we don't have in other places. We were just having this conversation about how to use our CETs, not this meeting, but, a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying, okay, we feel comfortable doing the 80 to 100 because this is a tool that we can, use to target that segment because there aren't available. I feel like this might be an opportunity site that really could leverage. It's very transit oriented. It has lots of great access. So I think that there's maybe pots of money there that will be available at the 0 to 30 that, where we won't need to necessarily, we can rely on other funding sources to get it done.
Yeah, the federal low-income housing tax credit program has sort of two types, one 0 to 30, and then the other is up to 60. And so they're very, very competitive, so I don't want to make that light, but that funding would be an opportunity for that site.
And I think this is an attractive site. It makes it.
And in the housing bond process, we know that the greatest need was in the 0 to 30 area. We also know that each of the counties, as they're trying to do their processes, are going to be doing the least amount of that they can do, right? Because then it makes the development easier. The more you can have in the 30 to 50, or 30 to 60, or the 60 to 80, the easier it makes it to finance that.
But they do have a certain number of units at the 0 to 30 that they're required to build.
Right.
So this is a city-controlled site.
And we could easily, I could see us being able to pull some of that housing bond money for this if we can get our act together fast enough.
And apologies if Layla has covered this and I missed it. One of the pieces when I have talked to the Clackamas County team about the 0 to 30 range is also making sure that you can get on-site services for the families. So I think if you're going to go down the 0 to 30, I'd also recommend that they have to show that they have office space or they have some sort of service component to it on-site.
Yeah,
right.
I think that's what you were asking about in
requiring
services.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for pointing that out.
Yeah, that's why I said it does make the pool a whole lot smaller for potential applicants.
But we have somebody right here in our downtown who does exactly that work.
Yeah, I think you end up being more specific about your ask, which will narrow the field, but I think the field is now wide enough that you would get some respondents. I want to make sure I get to your question about own or sell the land. I think we have a number of options. We can do a long-term lease. We can do land value write-down, which is what we're doing on other city-owned properties, or we can sell the land to a land trust. I think what I have heard today, and based on what I've read in past discussions, is that there's an interest in having this property remain in perpetuity for affordable housing. So I would say either the land lease option or selling to a land trust, or if you do sell to a developer in a land value write-down situation, that we have some sort of arrangement with them to ensure that there's maintenance and there's ongoing things like that. So we'll consider all of those things. So those are the options in terms of how you would transact on the land. The other thing I do want to make sure that we cover so that we have absolute clarity is tenure. So if there's a preference for ownership or if there's a preference for rental. And I think even in the 0 to 30 range, you're probably looking at more of a rental or a different type of model. But I did want to make sure that that was explicit about that, if there was any explicit direction that you wanted to give us, or if we should also sort of allow that to be an open-ended question that we end up evaluating once we get proposals in.
I love that there are models out there for helping this particular segment of the population build equity. I think of Emerald Village was the one that was explored back in the day when we were still exploring that cottage concept. So I'd be interested in something that supported that. I don't know that it needs to be limited to that. I also have this sort of a broader question, not to pull us off track, but and this is a place of ignorance for me, but I'm thinking about conversations that the community has had with the county about Hillside and the emphasis on sort of the community health of having a mix of different types of units. And I'm wondering at what size that no longer becomes an issue, because if we make this all 0 to 30%, then we're losing that mix. And we're segregating to some degree. I truly don't know, is that site and the number of people we're talking about for that location small enough that we're not really concerned about that, or do we need to be thinking about having a mix, maybe a mix of renter and renter building equity in some form, and a mix of 0 to 30 and, I don't know, whatever, some other percentage to some other percentage?
Wouldn't it sort of depends. I mean, don't we also need to speak to the potential zoning change that we might want to seek? I mean, that might help inform the discussion quite a bit. I mean, if we're only talking about 8 to 9 units, or are we talking about potentially, a much larger multifamily?
We would also love some feedback on that.
I will say, so what we're showing you is what's allowed by right. And I think that I would suggest that through the site planning process is when you start to really pull that question out, because you'll be able to engage with the community, get a clearer understanding of what the appetite is for development there. And then I would recommend that we have the developer pursue a zone change if that is ultimately what the site planning process leads to. I think that I would be concerned about pre-cooking that ourselves, because we're presuming then what the community thinks, what a potential developer might think. But I think it's fair to say that there is always an option to go through a zone change process. It would be a type 5 process because you'd have to change the zoning, and then you'd also have to amend the comprehensive plan. As you know, we'll be doing our housing code work in parallel to this. Probably the timing of construction would happen right around the time that we would be adopting a new code. But again, I think I would defer to the site planning and community engagement process for a zone change. But you're correct. So currently, like cottage clusters, as we have them currently written into our code, are not allowed in an R5 zone. They're allowed in an R3 zone. That would double your density. But I think the point you're making, Councilor Heise, is about mixed income and whether or not that's something that we want to pursue, which we could certainly write into the RFQ, is that we would like to see some 0 to 30% units. If you can give us a proposal that may include some income diversity, we would welcome that. but I defer to you on that.
It would depend, again, on the number of units. If we're talking 12 or 15 units, then I think not.
All 0 to 30.
All 0 to 30. But if we're talking significantly more than that, then yeah, a mix of incomes.
So this really is about drafting language into an RFP, and that's part of why we're pushing a little bit. I think, would you be comfortable if we said within the current zoning, it would be 0 to 30. If you make a proposal for over the current zoning to allow for more density on the site, we'd be open to a variety as long as there were a set number of units for 0 to 30. I'm just trying to make sure that we can draft what you're saying.
So setting up like scenarios that we can't figure out right now. Right. But so, you know,
And
under
inviting
this,
the feedback.
Yeah, and likely through the process, what we can do is, once we have a developer selected, it may be that we end up doing options, and then we would come back to you with those options. I think what we're doing with an RFQ is trying to select the most qualified team. And so what we can ask them for is say, here's kind of what we're expecting. We're not actually asking them for a proposal of what you're going to do. We're saying, how qualified are you? Give us examples of other projects you've done. And then from that, we can infer their capabilities in terms of developing the site out to best meet your goals. So I appreciate the nudge, because we do need to have some clarity around, I think what I'm hearing is 0 to 30 is our priority. We would be open to potentially, depending on the amount of units that can be built on this site, to up to 60, but no more. Am I hearing that right? And that the land we would, I think, want to see developers who have experience in long-term affordability. So beyond just the 30 years, perhaps, something that's in perpetuity. So whether that's through a land lease arrangement or a community land trust. But why we do an RFQ is because we don't want them to pre-cook the design. Right. We just want to know, are they capable of doing what we're asking them to do?
I would add some, and please push back if this is just making it untenable to find someone, but because there is a creek and it is a heavily wooded site, I do have some concern about protecting those environmental goods. I don't really think, I mean, I'm very familiar with the site. I don't think there's a lot of risk to any of those trees. I don't know why on earth you would be incentivized to go bulldoze them. I just wanted to call it out as something I'm aware of and have a concern for.
I don't think that there's any risk. I mean, it seems to me like, you know, we can see what the developable area is. It's the gravel. And I think it would be, I can't imagine that putting in there that everything else should be protected or enhanced.
That's not what I was saying. I was raising that this is an area that I have concern for, and given our tree canopy goals and the fact that we already have a whole bunch of really nice mature trees there, and there is a creek, and we're interested in protecting streams and watersheds, that rises to the surface for me. I'm not giving any direction on how we handle that. I'm just flagging it.
Oh, I guess I'm saying I think that it seems to me like it's an appropriate goal to put in here. I agree with you.
Yeah,
I think that,
100%.
And I can't imagine that it would be problematic for this site.
I would hope not. I mean, I don't know, maybe someone
Because
gets
all the
super
vegetation
creative.
is like this. It's on a
I was trying to, I need glasses. I can't read it. But there's about a 10-foot drop in some places. But I think that's a great goal that we can include in the project as well. Because the goals are really setting up the expectation for the developer once we select them for their site design. So if we're saying to the greatest extent practicable, maintain the existing natural area that surrounds the site. I would also say, because this is a site that's been contaminated, that the less soil we disturb, the better.
The better, yeah.
So I think there's going to be a natural inclination to not want to disturb soil to the greatest extent that we can.
Well, yeah, that north end is going to be in, and certainly that corner is going to be in habitat conservation area, because that is a wet,
that's very
wet. I had planning map this for me, and it's not in an HCA or WQR.
Really?
That's on the next lot, is it?
Yeah, it's on the next lot.
Okay.
So what are all those little boxes?
Those are parcel lines, and then I believe.
No, there's little like white. I thought that was following the flow of
those
the creek.
are topo
numbers.
map
There's
numbers.
map number.
Oh, Oh, those are the numbers? Okay.
elevation of that line.
Numbers.
I'd be
So
very
is that-
surprised.
Isn't that little triangle lot up there also something we purchased?
Just north of it?
Yeah, isn't this?
I don't believe so, but I'll check. Yeah, it doesn't look like it's a
No, we
parcel.
looked at,
but
looked
Looked
at
at another
maybe
parcel.
purchased the next one to the south.
And we didn't.
we didn't, yeah.
Okay.
And that one may be public right-of-way anyway,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's just narrowing the way
Yeah, it doesn't look
McLaughlin
like
goes.
it's managed by anyone.
Yeah, no.
It's not.
No.
Access will be a challenge for the site, but we'll figure it out.
Fire looked at that already.
Yeah, we had fire. Take a look. So right across McLaughlin is R3. So if this were R3, how many units?
16-ish?
16 is all?
It's double what it is now.
Okay.
And it would also qualify as if it's R3, it could be a cottage
Could be
cluster.
a cottage cluster, could be.
I mean, I think it's I think we want to leave it as open as possible. I think it's a potential site for a nice townhouse development, which Milwaukie hasn't had, and it might be a good model as we launch into talking about that for other parts of town.
And that could
Yeah.
encourage some innovation around ownership models or equity building models.
Right.
Very good. Okay.
Clear as mud?
Yeah, no, it seems really clear to me. Let me see if I repeat it back, and Allison's been taking notes, so great. So 0 to 30% is our priority, but we're open to potentially up to 60 if there's enough units that come out of the site planning process to justify a mixed income project.
Sort of like a baseline of 0 to 30 with the existing zoning. If
Yeah.
there's more units, there can be more diversity of housing types then.
And
what she said.
ideally getting, 15 was always the kind of the target
Okay.
number of families.
Okay. And then we're looking at family-size units, so 2 to 3 bedroom. We're agnostic on tenure, so we want to let them be creative about what that could look like.
Although I would say, either we're creating ownership potential, or I do like the land trust idea, I do think it's an idea whose time is finally coming in the metro area. I've been reading more and more about it. Yeah.
There was like 280 of them when I was working in Boston.
Yeah.
Everybody has them there.
Denver's really using it well,
Yeah.
too. So-
It's a great model, and there are more organizations. I just met with one recently that's expanding from Lincoln County into Clackamas County that is interested in doing that kind of work here. Preservation of natural landscape,
Yep.
so to the greatest extent that we can. Green building, that's
Green building.
obviously energy efficient.
Yep.
And then the other two, which we had up there, which were kind of project delivery and then public financing. Okay?
Contracting
And
and
MWESB
marketing.
contracting and affirmative marketing. Okay. Yeah, we'll pull some things from that. And I think probably the next best step would be for staff to document these and come back to you with a resolution to adopt the goals, such that we did on Harrison and Maine, because then we have clarity and you have clarity on what we're going to be putting in the RFP. So we'll be back in pretty short order with that.
And I just want to clarify, public financing is limiting City of Milwaukie financing.
Yeah.
Yes. Not
That's
counting
Think other types
Yeah,
of
not,
public money.
we're not requiring that they not
No.
take
Yeah.
federal or state or metro or,
Yeah.
please do.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's great feedback. Do you have any other comments, thoughts? Okay.
Cool.
We'll be back with a resolution, either in front of you or on consent, depending on how things go. But appreciate the feedback.
Very good. Thank you
Thanks.
very much.
Very
Great work.
much.
And we're not going anywhere because we're up next.
Oh, okay. Is there water in either of those?
Oh, yeah.
Is it remotely
Want me just to
cold?
drive for you?
Yeah, that'd be great.
You get to tell me when to switch slides.
I yield.
Next.
Thank you. All right. City Hall.
Great.
Our next item is the new City Hall at 10501 Southeast Main Street. Community Development Director Layla Aman and Allison. It's the Layla and Allison show tonight.
Yeah, get used to that. All right.
Okay, so we're going to share an update on 10501 Southeast Main Street, also known as New City Hall. So I'll review the existing conditions of the building and share the results of our space planning and rough order of magnitude pricing exercise. That was a part of our due diligence. And we're looking for council directions on our different space plan options and alternatives. You can stay on this one. So just a quick update on our timeline. In fall 2019, we conducted our due diligence, and the city contracted with OTAC, a local architecture firm, to produce space plans and rough order of magnitude pricing, or ROM pricing, for the property. The purpose of this work was twofold. So we wanted to ensure that the facility would, or that the building would meet our city facility needs and that we would fit within the space, and to get an estimate of how much our tenant improvements would cost. In January 2020, Advantis started the repairs to the third-story decks. You've maybe seen the white sheeting up there. This work needs to be completed before the close of the sale of the building. So they've recently exercised their 90-day extension based on the construction timeline. So we're looking at a close date in June 2020. That doesn't impact our final possession of the building. We anticipate releasing an RFQ for construction management and general contracting in this coming fall, and with tenant improvements commencing after we take possession in 2022.
Can I just add two comments to that?
Yeah.
So in addition to a CMGC, we'll also be hiring an architect. So it'll be similar to the process that we used with the library. And I felt that the architect-CMGC relationship was a really good one, because as we went through and value engineered that project, having our contractor and our architect together at the table, battling it out at times, was an effective way for us to actually get that beautiful building constructed. And then I think, too, just to note quickly that the improvements or the repairs will actually be done probably sometime in March or April, but we asked to have the closing date be in June, because that matches up better with our timings. That gives us a better understanding of where we'll be at the end of the fiscal year. Thanks.
So the existing building is a 3-story purpose-built office building. I know you've all have been in there at one point or another. So you know the ground floor is currently parking and office space, and then the second and third floor are conference rooms, offices, and cubicles with about 100 staff. On the ground floor, the main entrance leads into a small lobby with access to an elevator and stairs to the upper floors. The current stairwell is concrete masonry and a fire door, and the elevator is the main way that people access the upper floors. The ground floor is currently used as office space. In our space plans and our ROM pricing, we priced a demo of this existing office space and adding a plain, what's called a vanilla shell, so just kind of a plain meeting room, or something else that would need a base level of tenant improvements. It's about 12,000 square feet, so similar, or sorry, 1,200 square feet.
Really? It's a meeting room. You're saying the whole ground floor, or the ground floor behind that entry,
Just
like the pink?
The pink.
The pink.
Is 1,200 square feet.
Okay.
Which is a little bit larger than the community room at the library.
What's this room?
This is, let's say it's 600. 700, 800?
The community room is almost 900 square feet, right?
This was like 800 when we were looking at doing a remodel.
So it's bigger
The
than
community room's
A
just
much
shy
larger
of
community
900. Yeah, so it's
The layout's
300
a
square feet
little more
bigger, so a
awkward.
third.
We looked at two alternatives for the ground floor, one that includes a improvements to the entrance and the stairway, and then one that also looks at a light food service use, so adding plumbing and necessary venting to the space. On the second floor, so this is the floor plan of the existing second floor. It's currently office and cubicle space. It was recently renovated, so it has updates to the furniture and the light fixtures, and the offices are located kind of in the core of the floor in a hub and spoke model with cube spaces closer to the windows of the building.
Which Allison tells me is far more equitable for staff who don't have
Yeah,
offices.
I was thinking that, actually. You've seen the Portland buildings, recent remodel. They moved all of their offices and conference rooms to the core of the elevator. So you can see the offices kind of run along the interior of the floor with cubes closer to the windows. And then the recent renovation include recessed lighting, higher ceilings. So if this was used as a staff floor, it would need little demolition and renovation. The third floor currently has the reception area and offices on the exterior floor of the floor, and cubes are kind of in the center of the floor. The third floor also has the decks, which are currently being repaired, so the floor plan's a little bit smaller. And portions of the third floor would need to be demoed regardless of the space plan option. Just kind of, they've built out some different former meeting rooms, now cube space that we wouldn't be able to reuse. And you can see that it's just not as updated as the second floor, so it needs to be updated to conditions equal to the second floor. So we looked at two options that we had that we got ROM pricing for. The ROM pricing gives us a high-level estimate of construction costs using materials, labor, and project duration. So option one looks at kind of that ground floor vanilla shell, so a meeting room on the ground floor with the second floor as council chambers and the public-facing operations. So that includes permits, court, and development services all in one place. And then the third floor as workspaces for staff. This option has higher demolition costs because it involves tearing out the existing offices on the second floor to add in the council chambers and permit counter. Option two looks at the same kind of vanilla shell meeting room on the ground floor. The second floor would stay almost as is, as staff workspaces and offices, and then the third floor would be council chambers and public-facing services. We looked at two alternatives, so add alternatives to the scope of work, which are an improved entrance, so and stairway. So this was the existing stairway is concrete, CMU masonry work. So this would open up the entrance with glass storefront, and that would also have to be fire rated, and it would have to be there have to be structural reinforcement to the stairwell. So we got pricing for that, and then we also looked at pricing for a light food service option in that ground floor space. So if we didn't want to use it for city use, if we wanted to lease it out as a something that would be light food service, so at the cost of adding plumbing and venting, so a hood for cooking food, but not a full service restaurant, so more of a cafe use.
And just to clarify too, the improved entrance and stairs is on the inside of the building.
Yeah.
If you recall, it's just a big
Something that would maybe encourage people to walk up the stairs. So option one is just a little over $1.1 million. Option 2, a little over $800,000. And the 2 add alternatives, the improved entrance is about $150,000, and the ground floor light food service option is about $140,000. I want to highlight that this is not the entire budget for the project. This is just the ROM pricing for the tenant improvements. So this does not include furnishing, moving costs, any sort of work we would do with Energy Trust of Oregon around green improvements or energy efficiency improvements. And these are numbers that we're getting today in 2020 that we're going to be doing for a project in 2022. So we added in a contingency for a 10% contingency for that timeline, but it's also something to keep in mind. So then we have 2 questions for you. Do you have a preference between the 2 options, and do you have interest in including any of the alternatives as we move forward?
Would you like me to keep the numbers up as you have your deliberation?
Yeah.
So,
Option 2 appeals to me.
so say option 2, and you put council chambers on the 3rd floor and public-facing services. Because so when I had the tour, we were talking about the public-facing services on the ground floor in the pink.
Yeah.
So why have we gone away from that?
There's not enough room. So we did a pretty exhaustive look at that 1,200 square feet. We did how many options? Many options. And we just couldn't fit everything in there. And so we did discuss the option of maybe separating them. Then that created just some problems, and we felt that it was really important that was what the commitment we made to you and to the community, is everything would be in one spot.
But we didn't look at taking away some of that parking.
We did look at that as well. If we can go back, I'll show you the ground floor. So that's a structural wall that's on the west side. So the cost of that alone would just blow out the budget.
To put in openings in that wall?
Not even just to open it, but we looked at just opening it and then expanding out, just taking those 2 parking spaces, and the cost to adding that square footage was just...
Because we looked at blowing out the whole wall, or we just looked at doors?
Well, we looked at, because it's a structural wall, either way, it's going to cost. But we looked at, I think, blowing out the whole wall.
We looked at both, but part of the problem is that you also have your systems, your HVAC systems, everything coming down right on the backside of that wall. So it actually also required us to move a significant number of systems. So yeah, that's the main reason.
That's what we tried.
No, that's really good to know.
It's a good question.
So if you put the public spaces on the top floor, then what would you, like, have an elevator that the public could only go to the top floor and you had to have a key card to go to the 2nd floor or
That's
something
what we
like
do
that?
now. At this building, that's what they actually have, is so it won't allow you onto the 2nd floor. But we've also looked at different designs where you could.
At what building?
I'm sorry, at Advanced.
Oh,
The way they use the building right now is you go up to the 3rd floor.
Oh, okay.
So there are ways for, I think that's right, or is it the 2nd? Yeah, so there's a way for us to turn that on or off. But there's also meeting space on both floors. So we may also want to see if there's a way to barricade some of that to allow for more use on all the floors after hours. This is not a design.
Yeah.
So I want to be really clear. This is actually, Bonnie's here, and she's not talking tonight, but this is so we can figure out how much
We could change that.
This literally is for our bond debt, when we were going through this process, made a commitment to you about how much money we would be taking out in debt. Some of these options fit within that, and some of these options don't fit within that. We didn't want to make these decisions and take out the wrong amount of money.
Well, so my question's about the 3rd floor, the use of those balconies. If it's council and public facing, those things become never used. They're assets that
Well, it would still have, so
I mean,
Assuming Ann's office is up there, there's a lot of offices still
It can be, but I don't need a balcony either.
I just mean for like, just, I mean, if all of the, I think of those balconies as, you know, who's going to get the most benefit out of them, and it's going to be staff.
Well,
you know,
but the
just-
interesting thing is that that's not why they exist. The only reason those balconies exist is because of our planning process that required us to have a facade break. So we've actually talked about being fine, like putting up trellises or figuring out a way to encapsulate them, but it's a red brick building, it's pretty boring, and I think that when planning heard it, DLC, I think, was probably the one who made the requirement. When DLC heard it, they probably said, more.
So on the,
Anyway, they will be used if they're accessible by
Right.
staff. If they're not, then they become, I think, like,
so on the third floor, there is like a kitchen up there that's adjacent to one of the balconies, so that's kind of would be like behind the counter services, essentially. So the staff that are up there would certainly use that kitchen, use the balcony, and then the council chambers, if it's adjacent to the other balconies, would, if it's not a council event, if it's another type of event, you would certainly have access to those spaces as well.
Well, and even at a council meeting, I mean, I could see, like, it'd be nice to, I've even thought of doing it here, you know, just go out to get a little fresh air, but you don't have time to actually go for a walk.
Yeah, but we don't
Eat your lunch on.
Celebrations during council events, and if
Right.
it's a nice night, it could be out on.
It's also only one floor up. So, you know, people can go up and use that. Everyone will have their key card.
and the kitchen is up there.
There's two kitchens, one on
There's
each
a
floor.
kitchen on both floors. Okay.
Yeah.
So that would be good for staff.
Yeah.
You know,
The nicer kitchen's on
you can go
the
up there
third
and
floor.
use it.
On the second floor.
Second floor.
Second floor is the really pretty one that we all want to have in our houses.
Yeah, it's a nice kitchen.
So I'm fine with option 2.
Yeah.
I think initially I was for having the council chambers the most easily accessible, but the math makes it a whole lot more sane to do option 2.
So here's my concern is, like, there's only one elevator, right?
Right.
So you have one elevator and it goes out. You have one less, you have, you know, making everybody climb one floor is one thing, making everybody climb 2 floors is making it less accessible to people.
I think we have that problem today in this building.
Yeah.
And so part of what we have done when we designed the new library, we actually reserve the community room for every Tuesday night because there's always a chance that we're going to need the space. So we actually are probably underutilizing that space on Tuesday nights because we don't know if we ever need it. But I think it's a safe bet. And so we're planning that in perpetuity. And as we were talking about this when we were first buying the building, I would need at least 1 hour before the meeting to know that it had gone down, because just to get the room set up is really that critical time. But if we have that, we can move it. And we can do that with.
Well, so it's not just about the council meeting, because especially if we use that ground floor as the, you know, as a conference room of some sort, then we always have that for the council meeting, right? But it's about accessing the city desk, the city services.
And right now, we're doing that here too. I'm not saying it's perfect.
But people only have to go to ground floor here and ground floor in JCB, right?
Absolutely. And we would probably have to come to them. So
That is
if we have
not,
somebody-
not a concern that is worth $360,000 to me. That is a lot of money. That is a big difference for an occasional possible occurrence
Well, and
that
if
I
we-
think we can think our way around.
One of the things that we've also talked about on the ground floor, and we didn't go into it because we don't know what the space is going to be, but I do think I need to be somewhat transparent. The thought is that if you put more resources into the building, you might be able to lease it. One of the goals that we all have talked about is activity on Main Street. A conference room is not super active. And so there may be interest from community members to lease that space, and the more infrastructure we put into it, the more likely they'd lease it. Doesn't mean we have to, and it doesn't mean it's worth $142,000 right now. So that's part of why we wanted to talk to you about it, is do you also want to spend that money?
I wasn't
don't
going
like
to
that
go there until we made a decision on
That's fair.
1 and 2.
Sure.
Yeah,
So-
that one out of the
Are we leaning two?
Yeah.
Two?
Yeah.
Two.
Yeah, I'm kind of ambivalent, but I can live with 2.
Okay, so
So it's 2.
it's 2. All right, so then improved entrance and stairwell seems to me like we absolutely want to do that because we do want to encourage people to be able to walk up and make it comfortable and attractive and
Feel safe.
feel safe and all those things.
Yeah. And it's not a very encouraging
It's a
stairwell
bunker
right now.
type
It's
feeling.
really-
Yeah, it is a bunker type feeling
Should I
now.
be in here?
Yeah, it feels like you're in a place you shouldn't be.
It looks like, like a fire escape, not
Right.
really.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Yes.
But
Coincidence?
good point, yeah.
And as far as the last one, so part of what our sort of way of being as a council currently is to be very community facing, very community engaging and welcoming and trying to be as comfortable and as not the man as a lot of councils are. And so the concept of having one of the town's favorite coffee shops on the ground floor or some other great spot that people love to come to will just add to that sense of City Hall is a community gathering.
I have the exact opposite thought. I think we limit, I mean.
This is why it's here.
For the exact opposite reason. I mean, I think that we already have, within walking distance, good coffee that are already current, existing, established gathering spaces, especially.
Likely to be torn down.
But it's not yet.
We could add that if those places get torn down.
Might buy the Pond House.
I mean, there are already restaurants. Okay, let's take the coffee shops out of it. Directly across the street, there are restaurants that are not getting torn down anytime soon. And I think that this encourages staff to not venture. They can drive in, park in an over-parked building, never leave their office the entire day, go downstairs for their coffee, never leave the building until they get back in their car, and then drive to wherever they live. That, to me, is sort of that's where I was coming from on that.
Well, yeah,
This makes it sort of like, this is like a little gated community that you never have to leave. You never have to engage with the Milwaukie downtown businesses.
Staff walks up and down.
I'm not saying that that's the culture, but I'm saying that is,
I can't wait to walk up and down Main Street. Saying that. I hear you.
I'm all for supporting the small businesses that are here, first of all, but also if we did the light food service there, it would take away, there would not be the conference room there. And meeting space for years and years and years, I mean, in the whole 21 years I've been here, meeting space in the North Clackamas area has been one of the highest priorities of groups and people and, all kinds of things. I mean, even Rotary. I mean, we're actually outside the city limits, even though the address says Milwaukie, because there's not sufficient, meeting spaces, here. But, I mean,
But
that's
you need
one.
food service at your meeting space.
So,
called catering,
yeah,
right?
I mean, my concern was always that the council chambers be able to be used for other things. But if we had a meeting space on the ground floor, I wouldn't feel that necessarily. Because I think with the library conference room and another conference room on the ground floor, maybe we wouldn't have.
Well, it could be that maybe the council chambers still become meeting places for some things. I mean, I was at a meeting this morning in the West Lynn City Hall, and it was in their council chambers, but it had nothing to do with the dais. There was just a big square table for like the 40 people, 30 people, and that. So we could still have that. You could have that, and then something else still going on downstairs too.
So we are planning, the planning for the actual design of the spaces is still to come. We did do some of the layout just to get the pricing, and I really appreciate these two for doing the work. It was awesome.
I'm not in favor of a food service place on the bottom floor.
I think the one thing that I just want to warn you is right now there will be no staff on the first floor. So under this plan, it means that door will be locked. for a good chunk of the time, unless somebody is down there unlocking
The door to the conference room.
Yeah.
Which, as it should be, unless somebody's using it, right?
Totally.
Well, and it could also be used as sort of the vanilla shell that Allison described can be used for other things. So it could be a retail space.
Right.
That we could, I don't know how the demising would work necessarily, but
It could
be a retail
staging area
space.
for some of the projects that staff's working on, getting all the things together somewhere, or something. There's a variety of ways.
Let's remind everybody that everyone complains about the storefronts on Main Street that aren't active retail storefronts.
Yeah.
We whine about Dark Horse, we whine about the blinds, whatever they're.
Does that have windows out to the street?
Just don't put windows in.
Okay.
It does have windows.
Oh, it does, yeah.
No, it has windows, and I would.
So refresh my memory, because I'm the reason that there's, one of the reasons, or maybe the reason that there's parking on the main floor, the first floor, is because it's in the floodplain. Is that right? So that meeting room area is outside of the floodplain. We don't.
It is.
But we may have concerns about the outdatedness of our floodplain maps and whether or not that's accurate.
We also looked at how far, so it's the number of feet off of the Johnston Creek.
Right.
Was a big part of, we think, the design component. And we had that discussion with the architect we were working with. It comes into the parking area. It does not hit that room. I don't think when we were looking at the extra stalls being utilized that, like, going out one or two stalls would have taken it, but there is a point where you start getting into.
But there is some security buffer there of some sort.
A little bit.
Yeah, because I'm just wondering if it, if it is just a conference room that is utterly uninviting, and I agree that this is an opportunity for us to have a more lively storefront. I just want to be well informed about, are we potentially placing someone in the path of disaster?
Well, nothing precludes it.
Yeah.
We also have, a rotating, art gallery in our current city hall that I think could occupy that space, even
But you would
when
need a
it's
staff
There's not going to
person.
be anybody there, and
Yeah.
anybody across the hallway from it, so we have the art just for
In a locked room?
No, because the room would be locked. So just
Then
can
how
I
is that an
finish
art
my
gallery?
sentence? Because those are windows. And we don't have to only, we can operate it in a way that brings the art to the windows, that visually people can interact with it. And then at certain points throughout the day, it would be accessible and open to the public.
Like a sushi bar of art. I'm not making fun, that's just the first thing that popped into my head.
But I mean, there could be pop-up uses for it, right? Whether that's the arts committee or whether that's an actual business or whatever. I mean, I guess if we leave it, I think that's the question we have to resolve at this point, if we just leave it with minimal improvements.
Yeah, absolutely.
Other improvements
This really
would come
is
later.
how much money we put in a bond.
Yeah.
So it's not, we're fine, and we can continue that discussion at a future day.
Well, and if we do minimal improvements in that area, and let's say 3 years from now, 3 years after we started using the building, city council and city manager and you guys, everybody says, God, maybe we should turn that into a food space, a restaurant space or something. That kind of thing could always happen later if you haven't done a whole lot in it already, right?
Yep, absolutely.
If you leave it minimalized, yeah.
So to play devil's advocate, 1,200 feet is pretty good size for a coffee shop or something. Do we have any idea what kind of rents we could get for that? And could we, be reducing our debt by?
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a great data point to consider, because in theory, you could lease it out. Market rate downtown is $18 a square foot. Maybe it's a little bit lower because it's sort of on the far end of Main Street. So you could see yourself making those funds back over 10 years.
lots of possibilities. But
Yeah.
for the moment, we're looking at what the options are at this particular moment, right? So.
Just put the numbers back just for fun.
Leila?
Not for the.
Can you remind me, the improved entrance and stairwell, does that go just to the second floor, or does that, so we would, if the council was interested in going up all the way to the third floor, since that would be your primary entrance, we'd need to look at that as a pricing component.
And I'm sorry, I can't hear what you're saying.
Well, somebody gave me a cold. I think it was. I'm totally kidding. The improved entrance and stairwell only goes to the second floor in this bid price. So we would have to, if we want to do glass all the way up to the third floor, which is now where we're talking about having the entrance for council chambers and the primary desk, we just need to price that. So it'll be a little more expensive than what we have here. I just wanted to call that out.
Are there any security concerns with glassing?
My guess is that you can do safety glass.
Yeah,
So
it would be
I thought it
pretty
called
heavy
for it.
duty
It was
glass because
fire
it's fire
grade.
rated and it would just be in the entrance. So right now you kind of walk in and there's a door and then it's CMU to the ceiling. So this would just be for that lobby.
Floor to ceiling? This is the way to go.
Yeah.
Right, floor to ceiling, and then you could, do something interesting in the stairwell, maybe paint it. But then when you get up to the third floor, as Anne's saying, you would then be just going through a door. We can work with the architects to design something, but if you were to add that glass, it's probably a similar price tag as you're seeing here. So you'd probably see double the cost, would be my guess.
So if at some point in 3 years down the road, when the bond is already a done deal, everybody changes their mind and decides that since they're tearing Ray's building down, they want Ray to have a place, we can't put it back in the bond. So then we're just financing it, good old bank loan it.
Or the tenant is financing it. I think what we're proposing here is that the city put in the improvements that would be to the benefit of a future tenant, and how we end up getting that back through rent payment. But in most situations, a well-capitalized business can come in and put these kinds of tenant improvements in themselves. So that's another option too. It's less likely in our current market condition, but there could be more potential for that down the road. But I don't want to set expectations super high that, someone can just come in and build it out. I think what we're trying to highlight here is probably why we're seeing still a lot of vacancy on Main Street, because the cost of tenant improvements just to even do a light food service cafe are extremely high and are super high barriers to entry to small businesses coming in. And so I think the intent of looking at this was to provide us an opportunity to say, hey, we want to activate Main Street. We can pull this into our construction budget. We can get this thing built out. And ideally, we could pull a tenant in that would help activate Main Street who wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do that. And we'd need to go through some, I'm just throwing things out here, but we would want to go through some competitive process in order to do that, and something that we get a business owner that reflects what we want to see. So I think Allison and I both worked on a program in Lentz that was affordable commercial tenanting program, which we prioritized communities of color, women, minority-owned businesses, and we gave them tenant improvement grants to, again, lower the barrier to entry, and then we negotiated below market rents for a period of time. So that was sort of the thinking behind this, is like, let's just see, because it's kind of going to be dead space on Main Street. If we have the chance to influence that and change what Main Street looks like, this is a good opportunity to do that.
And create an opportunity for a lower income business owner.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that if we took this route, my recommendation to the council would be that we have a competitive process to use that space, because there is clearly a benefit. But, it isn't to say that we can't do that later. We used urban renewal money to do that work in Lentz. And so that's something that we can do if we, as part of our 5-year action plan work, determine that that's a priority, and providing tenant improvement grants on Main Street as being one of those things that we end up doing. That's still TBD, but that would be something that we could do at that time.
So the venting, does that go up through the building, or does that come out the front?
I'll have to verify that. I feel like it goes up.
I don't think it'd have to go through the building,
out through
just
the side.
as the garage is right there.
The reason I ask that is that's the problem they have.
A beer store.
Beer store is
Right.
didn't do it up through they bid some lower-end model that comes out the side and really limits what they can do in that kitchen.
Right.
Which is why we're proposing a similar use as that. So as Allison pointed out, it's not a full restaurant, because when you have a full restaurant, that changes the game entirely. You'll probably see this number double for that, because the venting then has to go, I think, all the way through. It's a far more robust system.
Hot air versus grease.
Yeah. So this seemed like a practical choice.
Okay.
So what we're hearing is yes on improved entrance, no on ground floor light, and great on option 2. Is that correct? Okay.
At the moment.
Smart. The mayor is not there.
That's where I am.
Do you want to
I'm
keep
getting the
talking
half
about that?
yes, no.
I think that this gets us.
Improved entrance, Sarah.
This gets us to where we need for the money part. We're going to be talking to you about design components over the course of the next couple of years. This isn't the end, it's the start. If something changes in that time, just let us know. But I think for right now, this at least lets us know how much debt we're bringing to you in June. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right, it's the Kelly Show. Council input on legislative and regional issues.
Do you have a thing?
Okay. I've been trying to figure out what order makes the most sense. I think regional first, and then I'll go to state after that. So I'm going to pass this around. So last time we talked about drafting a letter to go to Metro Councilor Christine Lewis in support of making a request for some funding from T2020 for a Kellogg Dam project to help leverage potentially some funding from a Metro Parks measure and then, or maybe some private investment, state investment. But before we had put in the entire request to T2020, that didn't perform well. So the task force meeting is tomorrow night. So drafted this up today. The underlined area is new since I emailed it to you. Councilor Heisey, that was my attempt at trying to capture the Coho investment. Again, just another data point to show that the city is taking the project seriously, that we're incorporating it into pending development that we're working on. So I underlined it just to show you that that is new. Would welcome any edits to that, but before we start talking through edits, Mayor, I just wanted to check in with you as the representative to that task force. I'm not sure quite which is the best way to kind of deliver this. If it's work on it, finalize it tonight, have you kind of hand deliver it to Councilor Lewis tomorrow, saying this is in follow-up to, and kind of talk to her that way, or do that and mention it during public comment. This isn't really what they're talking about tomorrow. So tomorrow night is really about the tier 2 project areas. There are programs that you could potentially point to for this type of a project. But again, that would be more of kind of some guidance we probably need to get from Councilor Lewis in terms of, is this something that you would expect to be earmarked in a program in the measure? Or is this something that could go back into T2020 as a part of the McLaughlin corridor as a project, just at a lower dollar amount? So I actually don't know the answer to that. We would kind of need some input from Metro, and the reason why I'm being somewhat differential to Metro is they control both the big pots of money that we're talking about. So if it's going to successfully leverage parks funds, how do they want us to do that? So I know, Councilor Heisey, you've had some conversations at the C4 table. I know you're going tomorrow night, and I just wanted to open it up to see what you both think makes the most sense in terms of how to proceed with the letter.
Yeah, and I don't know the answer to that either. I know that at the county level, my sense is there is some perplexity as to why $280 million is in there for McLaughlin. So that suggests to me that in the regional conversations, if we're expecting regional support, that we could argue to put it back in as a part of Tier 1. But again, that's not the decision-making body, so.
So, yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the whole process has been so devoid of specific facts that I actually have no idea, other than some sidewalk projects and the bridge in Gladstone and potentially double-deckering or quad-deckering the current light rail park and ride. What's planned. I know that there's some crossings of McLaughlin, not off-grade, but some, actually doing intersections with lights and things. So there may well be room inside that budget for this project. Maybe in a perfect world, if you could reach out to Councilor Lewis and see if I could meet with her, say, the half hour before T2020 to sit down and talk about it, and if not, find another time soon. As you said, tomorrow's meeting is not about this, so this is just sort of timing. The only reason it was relevant was to whether I was going to blow up all our goodwill by falling on the sword of Agalo, which I won't.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So see if we can get a meeting with Christine and we can talk about, specifics and how she thinks we can best shoehorn this in.
I can definitely do that. In the morning, I can reach out and see what availability she has for tomorrow. Maybe it's just because I'm committed now. I would kind of like to get this, if this looks pretty good, I would go ahead and finish it up and just have it as something you could take with you to that conversation. It won't speak to specifically if it goes back on the corridor list or else, where it just says we'd like $5 million for Kellogg Dam to leverage other resources. And it also gives me a chance to CC the Regional Solutions team, because we're having a meeting with them in March. So it shows that team too that there's an opportunity, because they might want to weigh in support of it as well. Okay, so I will. You have edits?
I do have a couple things. One is temporal in the second paragraph. I don't think that's...
I took it from somewhere else.
Oh.
And I thought it was supposed to be temperature.
Temporal will mean by time. It means a time barrier. It doesn't mean a...
I thought it meant it was hot water.
Where?
Second, bottom, end of the second paragraph.
Yeah, but the fact that we're struggling probably means I should change it.
I don't think that's the right use of temporal. But I think you can, it's a fine sentence without it.
Let's just delete temporal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then just the other thing, in the next paragraph, you talk about the connectivity between the trolley trail and also the...
Temporal is right, but it's not talking about temperature. What it's talking about is dependent on the time of the season, whether or not the river is in flood stage,
look it up.
is whether or not fish can get over the dam. The only time fish can access Kellogg Creek is when it's in flood stage.
So that there's that little bitty narrow time.
All space of time.
Okay.
So it is very much a temporal barrier.
But it's almost all the time, so we should take out
almost all the time a barrier. So I don't want to give an out to the idea
Your constant temporal
that there's one day a year that it's not a...
No, I know. I thought about it, and I should have taken it out. I'm sorry. Okay, and B, but another one.
The next paragraph, you talk about the trolley, connectivity under the thing, but nowhere do we actually mention MAX.
Light rail,
I think we should mention the light rail station somewhere in there.
Yeah, I can add a light rail. I thought about it, and it was getting too run-on-y, and then I stopped. But I can add a separate sentence that talks about light rail.
Or even just undercrossing will connect the trolley trail on the west and the back station and recently opened pedestrian bridge, I don't think you actually need a whole sentence.
Yeah,
just add it?
Just add Max Station, yeah.
Okay, done. Okay, anything else? Okay, If you think of it, I'm going to finish this up. I will get it to you tomorrow. I'm going to put everyone's signatures on it.
Okay.
Okay.
And did you find out anything about this March 2nd meeting that Neil?
No.
No, okay.
I ran out of time, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
But
there's an email out from the Intertwine people saying that Metro are having 3 meetings, one in each county at the end of February, early March, and there's a March 2nd one on there scheduled at Harmony Road campus, but then it wasn't coming up on the T2020 website for Metro, so it was kind of a bizarre. You don't know anything about that?
But if it's the Intertwined, it has nothing to do with T2020.
Well, no, it's where Intertwine was sending people to lobby for T2020 for trails projects. So I think it's supposed to be a Metro meeting, but you haven't heard anything?
It's at Metro Council chambers from 2 to 4. Councilor Beatty flagged it and came in, and I actually looked at it, and I was not clear if it was sort of the Intertwine. It was getting there together and Intertwine asking people to go and attend, or if there may be, my best guess was there's some targeted outreach meetings that have been set up around T2020, and they're related to trails somehow, and they're encouraging people to come. But the quickest solution is for me to call, and I just didn't have time today, and I'm sorry, to find out what it is.
Well, and if you find out tomorrow, my question is, if there's really a meeting at Harmony Road that Metro's going to be listening at, we can get people there from the Watershed Council and Greg Bartz-Bowman and people who are advocates who are passionate about the dam removal. But I don't want to send them if it's not meaningful.
Yeah.
So if you can just.
I will listen for that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I just put a pile of papers next to Councilor Beatty. I'll start with this kind of tiny spreadsheet that's me taking the slide and trying to actually add everything to it. Anything with a highlighted item is what I'm seeing as having a hearing in the near future. The one of these items that we do have a draft letter that Councilor Heisey put together is on SB 1530. So one of the items you should see is a second draft letter on city letterhead. That if you want to do it, we should finalize it, and so that we can send it in tomorrow, first thing, because the hearing is tomorrow. It is a general statement of support just for the SB 1530 and taking action on climate at the state level, because we're doing all we can at the city level, but we need the state to do its part, is the general theme. Councilor Heisey, all I did was round out, I put in some more information in the areas where you had a couple blanks, but other than that, I didn't change anything.
I don't feel a need to make this a super specific bill appeal. So that one, what I would be looking for is just any changes that you would like to see, and I actually need to pull it up because I think I gave everyone my copies. Do we end up with an extra? Yes, we have so many. There it is. Right. You can take that too.
So if you have any edits, I will take them. And
this was a 20-minute effort, so it's going to be flawed.
It's only 50% larger than
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not twice the size. Yeah.
it was meant to be.
It's not too late.
Yes, it is.
which one should I do? What do I need to fix?
The library is only 50%.
It's 50% larger. Okay.
Good letter.
Yep.
The SAFE program
program is building 36 miles, is that right?
Total, yeah, but the way that Councilor Heisey had structured it, I was supposed to say the amount built in the first phase. And the first phase number, I think, no?
Oh, no, I don't care.
Oh, it's 36 miles total.
I just didn't have time to text Angel because I knew she would know exactly.
It's 36 miles total over the 9 years.
And since we refer to the over 9, the 58 million over the full 9
good with
years,
that.
I say add the 36 miles.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
And I think we could be even more, so we say we're buying electric vehicles for our fleet. We could say, and we have, by the end of the year, we will have changed out all but 2 of our non-police fleet to electric vehicles. It's a bigger deal. Or it isn't electric,
you
though,
can't
isn't
say
it?
that.
It's energy if it's, dang.
Yeah.
It makes it a more complicated sentence. I had to work that one for a while on my State of the City.
Yeah.
Okay. It's just, a lot of places have 2 electric vehicles,
Sure.
say the exact same thing. But
Would you say meaningful progress towards electrifying our fleet?
towards
Yeah.
reducing the energy,
Significant progress?
Huh?
Significant progress?
Significant or meaningful? Yeah, significant. Significant.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds like a quantity, less of a quality.
Okay, I'm seeing head nods with those adjustments. Okay, then I will do that and get it out in the morning. Those are the 2 hot ticket items. Generally, just before I walked in here at 6:28 p.m., the Republicans did walk out of this evening's session.
Did they?
Yeah, so they are doing, reporting is like
I only spent 20 minutes.
a day by day. I'm still sending this stuff in.
This is not the time they've walked out so far.
Yeah, so I don't know exactly what will happen, but there's sort of a day-to-day thing, assessment going, so I don't know how long that will happen, but I just wanted to let you know that they're not there tonight. And there's much to say about that on Twitter.
And when's the end of session?
6th. It is, what did I say? I didn't actually bring that in front of me.
March 2nd.
March 2nd is a Monday.
I'll look up. I didn't bring that.
6th, I think, is a Friday or Thursday or Friday. That would make more sense.
It's one of those days in the first week of March.
Well, so I'm just trying to figure out if I have time. I'd like to draft a letter on the gun control one, but I haven't done it yet. So if I send it around, can we approve it by email or something?
Okay, last day.
I think, what we've done before, because we've already given general direction that we want to support that one. So I think, then I think emailing the actual letter for smithing, I think we've done that before without any trouble.
Yeah, then you just want to get all the comments back to Kelly in order to make them, so get the draft to her and then she can send it out.
March 8th.
March 8th. Okay.
I was wrong.
Sorry, my brain is a sieve. Yeah, March 8th. Okay, so I told you they didn't come tonight. We have these 2 letters. The repealing opportunity zones, HB 40110, is scheduled for a hearing tomorrow as well. Mayor Gamba, you sent an email note saying, hey, I'm going to support this unless there's strong opposition. There's no strong opposition from staff. That I don't think we don't have any in place in Milwaukie, so it wasn't an issue for us. Did you respond back with your support, mayoral support to that inquiry? This was an email. You don't remember?
I don't remember. I don't remember if I was waiting to hear back.
I would say if you're open to just responding back, since you get a direct inquiry, you could just write back.
Yeah, and since the city doesn't have any.
We don't have any. Yeah.
I don't know that it's to them, whether the whole city or if it just comes from you.
Okay.
And then the other one, the House Bill 4001, this is the emergency shelter bill. I called it just the COTEC bill last time. And it has its next hearing on the 20th. This is one where it's being actively worked. There's general support, it seems like, coming from the league, but just lots of questions. I did give it to Denny. He was like, yeah, this seems like a good idea. I have these questions. Like, you're requiring shower facilities, but could it look like this? Or, I mean, very detailed stuff. So I sent that to the league, and I just checked in today to say, okay, where are you at with this? Do you have any of these questions resolved yet? Is this something that would be helpful for us to weigh in directly? I haven't heard back. So I'm, at least on those technical questions, I'm working it at that level. But is this something where you are hoping to have any more meaningful comments or weighing in by the 20th? Because if so, I'd need a letter drafted. And the answer can be, no, that's fine, keep working out the details.
I say keep working out the details.
Okay.
I mean, I think, I don't, let's keep working out the details.
Okay. Great. So those are my hot ticket ones. I've got everything else still on here. The Happy Valley bill has cleared both chambers and is going to the governor's desk for signature. So that's done. I did attempt to find. Mayor Gimby, you should look at HB 4087 and see if that's what you were talking about. Those are the BOLI bills that the league had on their tracking sheet. You'd said BOLI bills, and I think that's what you were talking about, but if it's not, let me know. Okay. Does anybody else want to talk about anything on here? Yes. Okay.
So HB 4049, this was a bill that Representative Power actually flagged to the mayor and I, because Covanta is a long-established trash incinerator, and this bill keeps coming up in the sessions. It's an effort to get renewable energy credits for Covanta. And I called LOC and said, why on earth are you guys pushing for this? And they said, so this is a little weird, but the Covanta facility is the only place in the state that does drug take-back programs. That's where all of the things they bring in go to be incinerated.
Oh, so they're all in our air. That's awesome.
And it's also where any guns that are taken in go to be destroyed. So law enforcement is saying, look, we can't have our programs function the way that they do now if we don't protect this
Great,
plant.
but it's still functioning without the...
Right. It's just the looking down the... I'm not disagreeing at all, but I'm explaining why, this is why LOC has taken a position of support. And I said, I feel that it is problematic to try and win its long-term... I don't think making this eligible for RECs is the long-term solution to this problem, and you got to figure something else out. So LOC has heard us on that. It's kind of a weird one for us to submit any sort of testimony on, but it certainly does not stand in accord with our vision of what a renewable energy credit ought to be, and the watering down of the meaning of a REC is something that I feel pretty strongly is not what we're really looking for.
Are any other states counting it towards a renewable energy credit? Do you know?
I don't know. That's a good question. There's got to be some other way to dispose of bad drugs and guns.
Well, I mean, it can be a good system for a limited use for certain things. Like, I don't think anybody that I'm hearing say that's a bad use for this type of incineration. It's whether or not it counts as renewable energy credits. And I have not actually heard of anyone using these as renewable energy credits. I am happy to do a little digging if you want me to, and just get back to you.
Sure, yeah.
And confirm that that's not something happening in other states. If it is not something happening in other states, it was pushed for in Utah. We did not go down this path. I can let you know, and you can let us know if you want to do anything from there. We would still need a letter from you if you decide you want to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
Sure. I can't imagine it. Well, yes, I can.
Yes,
I can
you can.
imagine Louisiana or Texas or Mississippi giving RECs for a trash incineration.
Well, and I think that, I mean, my question, and I'll look at it tomorrow, is whether or not it counts towards the renewable energy portfolio of Oregon, right? So that's actually the question that they're asking, because I doubt they can sell these on an open market.
Right.
So that's what I'm trying to figure out is what's the benefit to them, and I think it's probably the renewable portfolio standard of Oregon, but let me confirm that.
So can I just clarify what the next step is on that? We're not drafting a letter, and you're looking into some questions.
Yeah,
and then you'll follow up directly with Councilor Heisey.
And if we determine that a letter is needed, I can do that.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool.
Okay.
Is for 4066 EV infrastructure, we did have staff add our logo to support. So
we did, because
yeah.
Peter
So I
did
think
it.
we are actually supporting that bill.
Yep.
Just a tweak to your lovely spreadsheet.
Yes, you are right. Logo. So no further action needed on that one at this time, or we're good?
It seems to be moving,
Okay.
as you've noted.
I saw a bus, they have a bus charger, electric bus charger out at Sunset Transit Center. And I was talking to one of the bus drivers about it, and he's like, yeah. I said, where's the electric bus? He's like, oh, yeah, well, but we have the charger, we're ready. So.
It's important.
So on the gun control, just FYI, the 4005 is the one that I'm seeing letters from the, the moms against, all those groups, the different gun control groups. I'm not seeing so much on the 1538, but I may draft the letter to address both. Anyway. Yeah.
Great. Anything else before I move on to the very last thing? Okay, so the last item are these two. You'll see a letter with the House seal and the signatures on the back, and then a draft jurisdictional letter. So.
Oh, that's why they
Only
were
have
those.
one.
I don't. Yeah.
What?
Was there?
Probably over there.
I don't have one with the logos.
Okay.
There's no, it's
the back side, like
asking for a logo. Yeah, that's the back of the House letter.
That one.
Well, you're.
Okay. I didn't have this one.
Okay.
Sorry, everybody.
Do I have them? No. I don't have a stuff on them.
I think people thought that it was just one
thing.
I probably didn't explain it. Yeah.
See, they were different. So
Definitely past that. Mark has it. So how did
Yeah, I
you
don't
not
know.
get it? Okay.
I guess
Okay.
maybe I had them both.
I'm
same pile thinking.
I'm sorry for, I should have held and passed at the right time. So Clackamas County has actually circled the wagons and are putting a united front together to ask that the legislature reprogram the money from Rose Quarter to I-205. And the letter with all the signatures is all the representatives who signed on in support of that idea. I believe. I just handed all my copies away, but I believe that's what it says. The request that we have before us from C4 right now is, would the city be willing to lend its logo to a coalition letter with the verbiage similar to the second document, saying that the city of Milwaukie supports this move as well. And so I'm asking you if you would like to do that.
I spoke with Rachel when I was down there on Tuesday for the rally at length, along with Chris, the Clackamas County, and reiterated the position that I've held all along, that the only way I'm interested in interstate widening is if in the process they're designing for bus on shoulder, literally designing the interchanges for bus on shoulder so that it is good to go. Because at some point they are going to be, if it moves the way that the legislature decided it will move, there will be tolling to pay for the bulk of this, because I don't think that even the Rose Quarter money gets you there. All along along, we have said, if you toll and you don't give people an option, you are hurting low-income people. And you do not reduce congestion by building more lane miles. Period. They always say, well, but it's just that one bottleneck because it's only 2 lanes and it's 3 lanes everywhere else. Yep, and as soon as you fix that bottleneck, some other bottleneck will occur because the traffic will increase. LA can tell you this story ad nauseum. So I have said over and over and over and over that the only way I'm interested in supporting it is if they are designing for bus on shoulder. And I still cannot get a commitment that they're willing to do that.
Yeah, I'm really surprised to see the add rapid bus transit because I've had similar conversations, a quick phone call here and there, and this is the first I've ever seen any mention of transit. I think I'm hopeful, but what about though the amendment actually does that? Because that has not been part of the conversation for 205. It's always been about bottleneck and widening, and
So she put that in specifically because of our conversation. That was not in the original letter. And the question I asked Chris when he came in the room was, does this mean that the design and the build on the interchanges will include the system for allowing a bus on shoulder? And he said no. That would have to be rebuilt later. This is just saying structurally the bridge will be able to support mass transit. I said that's not the point.
Yeah.
So wait, hold on. So, because I thought, okay.
Can we let Wilda talk?
Oh yeah, by parts, yeah.
So I don't know if everybody's knowledgeable familiar with, and I don't know all the specifics about it, but beginning in just a few days, I think it was like the 23rd or 24th, something like that, Wilsonville Smart is with guide cars. They are going to begin to test bus on shoulder on both Highway 5 and Highway 205.
To where? To what point?
From Wilsonville to Clackamas Town Center. They talked about that this morning. Dwight mentioned it briefly, and then I can't remember where I was in the last couple of days, but he spoke more about that. But at the Transit Summit that Clackamas County Business Alliance did. So I sent you guys all the PowerPoints from that, and I'm pretty sure Dwight mentioned it in there. But if he didn't, they are beginning their trial runs on that just in a very few days. It's like the first part of next week or the end of this week or something. So, and he explained that it would be on both highways and that it would be Wilsonville to Clackamas Town Center on 205, and that they would be using 2 guide cars, one in front and one behind of the bus. The buses for this trial run would not be filled with people, but it would be a clear route from Wilsonville to Clackamas Town Center.
And the smart buses are smaller than the TriMet buses?
I think so.
So that would be one distinction.
I think so. Like I said, there are some details I don't know. I just know that Dwight mentioned that in both the summit last Wednesday morning and also this morning at the legislative roundtable we were at.
Right. So it's structurally, we know that the bridge is designed to be able to handle. It's not a weight thing. It's not. It's as I understand it, and I'm not an interstate designer, the issue that they're avoiding talking about is when you have an on-ramp and an off-ramp. More of the on-ramp is the problem. You got traffic coming like this, and basically you have a bus that has to cross that traffic. And there's apparently designs that people have figured out, smart people have figured out to do that.
Well, and I guess this is the first step in seeing what works and what doesn't, and whatever. It's the trial runs to sort things out. And I know that he's working with TriMet, but I don't recall exactly what he said, so I apologize for that.
Okay, that mirrors my old knowledge, but there was always an effort to look at bus on shoulder for 205 with or without this project. And so there was efforts in place to start looking at that. I think a lot of the questions that were coming in through design were not just about bus on shoulder, but were about high capacity transit. And that was getting pretty complex. And so there's a second, so I think the structural questions that you want answered actually sounds like potentially they are being addressed with the design. I agree there will always be interchange conflict issues, but I think you probably are going to be getting some answers about how to manage through those conflicts with or without this project through the pilot project or the study that's being done right now on bus on shoulder. So I haven't heard a ton of resistance to bus on shoulder. I know there was resistance and concern about light rail because that was going to pretty drastically change the design. But I thought, bus on shoulder was definitely always somewhat in the mix because it was already partially being studied anyway. So to your question though, like what all changes or doesn't change with respect to the project design when these funds move, I don't know the details to that. I think it's just the general concept of, and again, like other times we talked about 205 is totally up to you, but I think most of the other cities in Clackamas County, from what I can tell, are kind of lending their support to, hey, if Portland doesn't want the money, we'll take it to build something here is kind of the general vibe. So
Portland definitely wants the money.
Yeah, they just don't want it for Rose Quarter.
Which part of Portland you're talking to?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think even the people who would like to scrap the whole plan and put a cap over it would still like the money.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
So it's a smart move, frankly, on Clackamas County's part, strategically, in my opinion. But whether or not the city of Milwaukie wants to, is up to you guys.
I'm kind of agnostic, but I wonder if it's not it seems like we've had some good headway lately on a few things with the county commissioners, and does doing this help us preserve that and or more importantly, does not doing this, threaten any damage to that, I guess, is my question.
Well, and Rachel did put it in. She... So...
If we can keep that in, if there's, I don't know how we do that.
I think
that's
my
the thing it
signature
hinges on.
is definitely, contingent on
That's the only
bus
way.
rapid transit. I have no interest in putting my name on highway widening, period.
By itself, yeah.
And that is the question, I guess, if it's more, I can follow up tomorrow, whether it's our logo but not individual signatures, then if there's a majority of folks that are okay providing the logo, we're not going to individual signatures right now, because that...
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
I'll vote no.
Okay.
So that's my, but I understand that, but what I'm saying is, that has to stay. This is the first time I've seen it. That is encouraging, but also
And I
not
think probably us
a
showing
guarantee.
response to it is probably
a good idea.
the only way it stays in.
I think it's too bad that more people couldn't have gone to the Transit Summit last week that CCBA put on. It was very informative, and hopefully you'll have a chance to look through the PowerPoints that I sent out to you in 2 different emails. It was a very comprehensive more than an hour of discussion about the various modes of transit that folks are working on throughout the entire county and then the region too, because TriMet was one of the major players there, as well as all the local transit options.
So I'm hearing okay to logo as long as that bus rapid transit language stays in.
Yep.
Okay. I will communicate that back.
And thank you for finally hearing us and putting bus rapid transit in there. That is huge. That is, sure.
Okay, I'll communicate that back. And unless I missed something,
Before we keep going.
Yeah.
So we did a little bit of research while everybody was chatting about bus rapid transit. Yeah, you don't want this at all. For the gasification systems, the incineration. So I would strongly recommend that you do a letter saying that this should not be counted towards your renewable portfolio standard or towards any renewable credits.
Can you?
I will destroy it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oppose. I'm filling in my block. Oppose. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thanks, Kelly.
Okay, thank you very much. All righty, here we go. All right, join City Manager Ann Ober at an open door session this Thursday, February 20th from 4 to 6 p.m. at Leading Library. You can utilize these times with Ann to ask questions, raise concerns, or just find out more about what the city is doing. No sign-up is necessary, but sessions are limited to 15 minutes or less to help accommodate as many sessions as possible. Join the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District at a volunteer event to restore riparian habitat at the Three Creeks Natural Area this Saturday, February 22nd from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. You can sign up to volunteer online. Come participate in a free conversation with Veronica Nunez and Kiri Collette called Bias and Kids, How Do Our Prejudices Affect Our Children? The event takes place at Leading Library on Thursday, February 27th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. and it is the second event of the 2020 Oregon Humanities Project. Celebrate Black History Month on Wednesday, March 4th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. at the Leading Library as we welcome 4 guest speakers, including Kim Moreland, board member of the Oregon Black Pioneers, Libra Ford, award-winning speaker and social justice leader, Dorothy and Hurtis Hadley, owners of the first African-American owned business in Milwaukie. Join a free conversation at the Leading Library on Thursday, March 5th from 6 to 7:30 p.m. called Can We Get Along? Examining our personal experiences of connection and community. Chisao Hata, an artist, educator, dance director, arts integration specialist, community activist, and performing artist, will lead the conversation. Volunteer at the Johnson Creek Watershed Council's largest restoration event of the year on Saturday, March 7th at 8:45 a.m. to 12 p.m. There are 10 restoration work parties to choose from throughout the watershed. You can learn more and sign up online. For more information about each of these events and others, please visit the city's homepage at www.milwaukieoregon.gov. Do you want to do the
Yeah, I'll do that, but also on Thursday the 27th, before that event at the library or around that event at the library, you can come to City Hall, as I understand it, for an open house on the Lake Road project from 5 to 7 that night is an open house on the Lake Road Safe project and repaving and everything. Yes, also earlier this evening, we had a speaker from the Oregon Long-Term Care Ombudsman, and they are looking for volunteers who want to help represent people in long-term care facilities, adult foster homes, and the like, who often don't have much representation, and they're having a training for their program starting on March 10th out on Sunnybrook Road. So the timing is good now. If you're interested to read more about that, it is, where did I write it down? Oh, I wrote it on the agenda. That was too organized of me, or on the, yeah. OLTCO, Oregon Long-Term Care Ombudsman is what that stands for, oltco.org. And there's an online application to, as well as opportunity to read more about their program.
Very good. Anything else, anybody?
Move to adjourn. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned. Yep.